Good evening. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Town of Superior Board of Trustees in the Superior Metropolitan District Number 1 for January 25th, 2016. Phyllis, could we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Clint Folsom.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Deborah Williams.
Here.
Trustees Joe Sorelli, Rita Dozell.
Here.
Elia Gagoras.
Here.
Chris Hansen, Sandy Pennington.
Here.
Town Manager Matt Bagley.
Here.
Town Attorney Kendra Carberry.
Here.
Town Clerk Phyllis Hart here.
Thank you. Next is the approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Okay. Motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Okay. Motion by Trustee Gregoris, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. All those in favor?
Wait. Roll call. Spending money.
Well,
No,
we haven't
no,
spent it yet.
Oh,
That's
okay.
when we do the consent agenda, but
Sorry.
you're good. Good
You
to
thought
put
we
that
were
on.
onto the consent agenda already?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, we're moving right along.
Way ahead.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that spirit. Okay. Okay, we are unanimously approved of the agenda. Next is reports, questions, and issues. Who'd like to start?
Sandy does not want to start. Rita?
How about Trustee Dozell?
Okay.
Let's start at the other end.
Okay. So on January 13th, I was one of many that got to tour the Boulder Valley Ice building, and I want to thank Luke Taylor and the staff that arranged that. That was a great tour, and I can't wait till more people can actually safely go over there without a hard hat, to actually see it. But I know there's been some communication about opening the Boulder Valley Ice Building, and there's a lot of work that has to be done yet to be able to have people safely get to it. But it's moving along very nicely now, and I think that what I'm going to find fun is that when it does get opened and early this spring or the next couple 3 months, that we'll be able to go there too for a restaurant that'll be there, and it'll be public can just go in and participate in the restaurant and watch while people are out there skating around or playing on the turf field. So that's really good. And I think that if Luke could give us an update so the public could hear it sometime, next month or maybe toward the end of February, that would be really good too, because it's always good to hear right from the person that's responsible for it. And then last week on January 20th, I attended Dr. Cog board meeting, and most of that board meeting, the Denver Regional Council of Governments, was about the legislative session and the bills that are coming up, and they do a lot of lobbying for all of us that are members of the Dr. Cog for particular bills that might come before the House of Representatives here in Colorado and the Senate. So right now, the one that's been already introduced is House Bill 16-1008, which is to allow RTD buses, the Flatiron Flyer, to access the shoulder of the road when there's accidents or they need to get going faster around all the traffic. And because right now they're precluded from doing that by law, so they have to actually change the law to allow the buses, the RTD buses only, nobody else, to access the shoulder of US 36 and ultimately other roads. And that's my report of what I've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
I just wanted to clarify that we had a meeting earlier this evening with the Planning Commission, and there's a file that I wanted sent to everyone, but that's not the correct file. The file, Martin has the file, so if you could put it on the Dropbox. I have a feeling it's pretty big, and as I understand, the mayor loves the Dropbox, so we're going to go with the Dropbox. My favorite, too. Can anybody else? You could all access the Dropbox, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Also, I went to a library meeting last week, and we don't have a whole lot of new business, but we do have some new members, which was nice, completely new members. And our next meeting, we are asked to bring some ideas of new projects that we'd like to do with the library. So if anybody has anything that they kind of want to present or discuss about the library or add new, please let me know, and I will present that at their next meeting. But currently, some of the projects that we do is the One Book for Colorado, the staff luncheon, woo, back to school nights, that's a good one, the little libraries, and the summer outreach at outdoor events such as the farmers market. So we don't have a whole lot on our plates. And then also the Make It a Superior Day is tomorrow night with the Youth Advisory Council. And it is at the Rocky Mountain Fire Station number 5, just over here on Colton Road and Indiana. It's at 7 o'clock to 8 p.m. It's a free program. And I know all of you have probably gotten an e-blast email on that, but I will just read a little blurb here. The Superior Youth Leadership Council wants you to keep your New Year's resolutions this year. Join us on Tuesday, January 26th at the Rocky Mountain Fire Station for tips and tricks to exceeding your 2016 goals. Workshops include how to build a SMART goal, SMART in all caps, apps to maintain your goals, which I've seen a couple and they're very cool. Probably don't know about them. And breaking barriers. All ages are welcome. Light refreshments and snacks will be provided. And you can either register or you can just show up. So.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Gruber.
So to piggyback on what Mayor Pro Tem Williams said about tomorrow night, the kids are very, very excited about this opportunity to, and when we had the discussion earlier on this month about SMART goals, they went around the room of all the different apps that they use that has to do with anything from homework to weight loss to exercise. I mean, you name it, and they're into all of that stuff. Everyone has their own favorite app or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
So
And
it'll be quite an education, I think, tomorrow. I think
It's
it'll be quite
worth
fun.
going just for the apps, just to find
Just-
out
yeah.
new apps to guide
Just-
your life.
right.
Because honestly, I was looking at them going, oh, I can't believe I don't know about that.
I mean,
So-
really, they just they have apps galore. So, also, like Trustee Dozell, on the 13th, we went to the BVI, which now that it's built on the inside, it's a lot bigger than actually we thought. You know, the first time when we walked through there in October, it was just the outside shell, and it was just this empty space. It's huge inside. And the indoor sports complex actually might be done before BVI is completed. And kind of the general time frame for BVI, I think it's sometime in late March. Is that correct, more or less? So that's really exciting. They have electricity now, which is a big, Excel finally came through. No, these are major milestones, actually. No,
we have electricity now.
we have electricity.
Wow.
That's right. So they were getting ready to put the sheet of ice. Yeah, so they're making a lot of progress. Finally, last week, we attended the Louisville and Superior Joint Issues Committee meeting. Alex, would you come up and just share with us one of the things that we're collaborating with Louisville has to do with the wastewater and water system. So what's the update?
Sure. Alex Arnello, Director of Public Works. The Louisville and Superior have been working on a finance study to look at the wastewater integration and answer some of the finance questions. So we do have a report from the consultant on the cost of integration for both us and them, what that means in terms of monthly bills to our residents and their residents. So we have a lot of information now. The city of Louisville is in the midst of expanding their wastewater treatment plant, and there's a window of opportunity for including some of the stuff that we could need. So they're kind of pressing us on maybe we need to get back with them on this in the next 3 or 4 months. We're not quite there yet from the staff. I think we're ready probably to sit down at a work session and present the information we have to date and give you our kind of recommendations on where to go from here. Because obviously there's some significant issues, and the decision is not really clear-cut. I mean, financing decisions really don't look like it's a great benefit to us, so we have to really weigh whether this is something we need to do. So I think we're about ready to sit down with the board and share that information. So I think a work
Yeah.
session next couple of months.
Okay, thank you. Couple more things. One of the topics of discussion was the possible addition of a 24/7 drop-off location for books here in Superior. And I think the consensus is that probably the best place of that would be actually at BVI once it opens, just because they're going to be open a lot more than anything else around town. And what's their schedule like? They're going to be open from 6 a.m. to 1 a.m., I guess?
Yeah,
more or less.
I don't know the specific hours that the facility's going to be open, but it's something close to that. And Beth Barrett was at that meeting, and one of her concerns was, because we had talked about a outdoor drop box, but they have safety concerns with that.
Vandalism,
So,
safety, right?
Right.
so we were trying to think of a facility that's open, most of the day compared to town hall, and that was an idea that came up. So.
Yeah, thank you. Also, the Sam's Club Urban Renewal in Louisville, it's a huge property. So their RFPs are actually due this March, so in a couple of months. So they're clearly moving towards doing something with that property that's been sitting pretty much empty. I think there's a church there that meets, but it's really hasn't been taken advantage of for several years. And last but not least, and this is the most interesting thing to me, Louisville Rec Center, possible expansion. So last year, they had 250,000 people that walked through the doors of the Louisville Rec Center. And mind you, it's pretty old. It's pretty dated in a lot of ways. So they're looking to expand. Take a guess what their revenue was for 2015 for the city of Louisville, just from that. $1.9 million.
What was net revenue?
That's a lot of revenue. $1.9 million
Well,
in
what was-
2015.
What was net after expenditures?
They didn't give us that information. but
Probably
the-
minus.
Well, I don't know about that. To me, that's a very impressive number. We always talk about rec centers, like, I know it's been rejected a couple times here in Superior. I'm always a big proponent to have something like that. They're basically saying they cannot keep up with the demand. So they're booked solid, and that's why they're looking for an expansion. That's it.
Okay. Trustee Pennington.
Same Boulder Valley Ice Tour and the same amazement at the actual size of it, and looking forward to it opening soon. Also attended an OSAC meeting, and so we had a change of leadership. The leadership elections always occur in January. Perhaps it was a busy work meeting, but I wanted to let everybody know that they did consider the trail south of Remington and put a recommendation in the minutes you had attached to your agenda, neither to do the east-west nor the north-south. And on the north-south, just because Chris isn't here, I want you to know that ProStack disagrees with them on the north-south trails, so as usual, that will be up to the board. But other than that, just a good active meeting. I attended at the invitation of the executive group of the Rocky Flats Nuclear Guardianship Group, a meeting that was called one last week, a couple of days before that. Jeffco Commissioner Casey, Tighe, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, and the medical director, Jeffco Medical Director Johnson, asked this group to present their information on safety or non-safety of Rocky Flats and the refuge and all that. So I attended that just as an invited observer. And then this week I will attend a presentation that will be by the same group that is being held at the request of the legislative aides to Bennett, Polis, and Perlmutter. That's going to be on Thursday. Rita, you didn't mention the Rock Creek Living event, did you?
No, I did not.
Okay,
I forgot
Rita
that.
and I met each other not planned, at the Rock Creek Living event that magazine holds for residents of Rock Creek Living. The topic was Superior Town Center. That was well attended, and nice presentation by Pam from Superior Town Center. That's it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I'll do my announcements now. Also, on the 13th of this month, I went to the Boulder Valley Ice Facility, and like the others, very impressed with the progress and very much looking forward to that opening. The next day, on the 14th, I attended the U.S. 36 Mayors and Commissioners Coalition meeting. This is the group that of mayors from the Boulder County and commissioners from the Boulder County region. We take a trip to Washington, D.C. each year, and we're planning that trip for this April. Discuss the bus on shoulder legislation that Trustee Dozal mentioned. There was some representatives from CDOT there at that meeting as well, and they gave us an update on US 36, the Phase 2 construction. Basically, it's mostly done. The tolling is in its test mode right now. It'll be about 2 months for that, and just to watch signage and announcements for when the tolling portion of that's going to begin. But the roadway is mostly done. The bike trail from Boulder to the Broomfield area is mostly done as well, and watch for announcements about the official opening for the bike lane. There's going to be a celebratory ride from Louisville to Superior Louisville Superior to Boulder sometime in the spring, just to kind of celebrate the grand opening of the bikeway, which is a big deal for the region. And also on the 14th, I went to the Metro Mayors Caucus Executive Committee meeting in Denver, and they've asked me to present to the entire Metro Mayors Caucus a little short presentation on the diverging diamond interchange. So kind of resurrect my presentation that I delivered in Nashville for that meeting. And attended our Planning Commission dinner at the work session this evening, and I just want to express thanks to all the planning commissioners for all their hard work on things we do in town. And so that's it for my announcements. Anything for Town Manager?
Yes, a couple things. Just give you an update on the YMCA situation. My staff has met with the YMCA over the past month. The YMCA is going to continue to offer soccer in Superior using the town's facilities without the $38,000 annual supplement or subsidy. So the YMCA will pay the same rate as other partner groups in town for our facilities. The YMCA will no longer, as a result of this, offer a discounted registration fee for Superior-based soccer program. And this doesn't affect other YMCA sports such as tennis or basketball that were not part of that agreement. And then my staff is going to meet this week with YMCA representatives. They have a concept called the YMCA Express that they're thinking about, maybe a possibility in the town center. And it's somewhat similar to the facility we were looking at possibly doing with Impact Sports, that kind of one-floor recreation facility. The YMCA has something similar that they've done in other cities that's been successful, and so they're thinking that this might be a good concept for them to do in the town center and provide recreation services to residents that way. So we'll be meeting with them to discuss that further, and as with the master developer representative as well. So we'll keep you up to date on that as things progress or not.
So just a question on that. So
Yeah.
they would find a spot within some building that would go up eventually in there and put it in that,
Right.
along with
Yep.
something else?
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And then we're trying to schedule a joint meeting with the City of Louisville Council. You had seen an email that went out. Those dates don't work already. So I have 2 new dates for you to consider, April 14th and 21st, which are Thursday. So if you could let me know if those work, and I'll follow up with Chris and Joe as well.
What date did you say, 14th?
April 14th or the 21st.
Okay,
They're both
21st, okay.
Thursdays.
Do you have a time?
Probably in the morning, 7:30 or something like that, I think is
Okay.
what we've done in the past, so,
No for the 14th for me.
okay.
You said no or yes?
No on the 14th.
Okay.
I don't know about the 20, I think 21st will work.
Okay.
Perhaps the 14th.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
well, that's out.
like to get everybody there if we can, because they're good meetings, so. Just, then the last issue is, we have been working with advisory committees to have their meetings held up where you sit, so that we can record the meetings and have it available to residents to watch if they can't make the meetings, or if somebody on the committee isn't able to attend, they can go back and watch the meeting, and the sound's good and all that. There's a couple committees that just, the Historic Commission's kind of a big group, so we're trying to figure out how to make that work. The Youth Leadership Council does a lot of activity type stuff, so I don't know if that's going to work. OSAC's been doing it, RCAC's been doing it. ProStac was doing it, but my understanding, there's a member or members that don't like it, and so they've started having their meetings around the table again. So I wanted to see what the board's thought. In my opinion, it's good to have them up there so we can record the meetings and it's available to residents. But, if I try to force the issue, it's going to come back to the board. So,
OSAC has adapted well.
yeah.
I sit
Yeah.
there and they sit here.
We certainly don't own these chairs, so.
Right, yeah.
So that's fine with me.
So we'll go back to ProStac and see where it goes, I guess. But I want to make
ProStac is probably the one committee where it would,
Really
there's
good.
more extensive discussion, I would imagine, that might be good to have it recorded, but whatever
Do
they're
you still
comfortable with.
record the audio of that meeting?
No, it's hard to get it
Yeah,
when
you
it's
can't.
around the
Without-
table, because the
You can't
mics
hear
aren't
it
right in
very
front of
well. Right.
everybody. So
Yeah.
that's our biggest issue with trying to record when they're not up there. So that was it for me.
Okay.
Can I ask a question,
Oh, yeah.
Matt? So could you provide a comment or two about the buffer restoration?
Sure. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And we can send out a letter. I think we might be able to get something out as soon as tomorrow to
Mhm.
residents, giving them an update. I don't have all the information, but, so staff continues to work with a consultant on possibilities to restore the buffer that we hired a month or so ago. Since that time, the master developers come forward with their own plan, and that is simply to restore the buffer to the exact pre-elevation it was prior to the grading. This would, and some of the southern developable blocks, raise those areas by about 20 feet, and that would be the only impact to the developable areas. And then the whole buffer area would be restored to the pre-grading elevation. And then we'd still have to do a final development plan for landscaping and trail and what that's going to look like. But still working on a timing with the master developer on when this would occur. So I don't have that information yet, but that's kind of the latest information I have.
Okay, thank you, because they got a lot of dirt, so.
Yeah, the dirt's there. They
The
have it.
dirt's
Yeah,
there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Town Attorney?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Town Clerk? All right. All right, next is public comment, and we welcome any comments from the public on consent agenda or non-agenda items. And just to clarify, we do have an agenda item on the El Dorado K-8 Park. That is item number 16 on the agenda, and we will be allowing comment during that time. So if you'd like to comment on that, you're welcome to do so when we talk about agenda item 16. So public comment for consent agenda or non-agenda items. Welcome. Welcome. Anyone? Okay. No public comment. Next on the agenda is presentations, and we have none. So next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
No, I'd like to make a motion. Oops, I'm sorry, I'd like to make a motion to pass the consent agenda.
Second that motion?
Okay. Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Williams, second by Trustee Gregoris. And we'll need a roll call vote.
Joselle?
Yes.
Wilson?
Yes.
That's right.
Gregoris?
Yes?
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Consent agenda passes. Next on the agenda is item number 12, adoption of a resolution repealing resolution number R13, Series 2004, concerning priorities for spending, open space sales tax revenues. Town manager?
Yep, thanks, Mayor. In 2001, voters approved a ballot issue for a new open space sales tax. The ballot issue included specific purposes for the funds generated by this new open space tax. Those included, in the ballot language, incentives for creating and maintaining additional open space within commercial developments, creating and enhancing or expanding buffer areas between commercial and residential areas, or main thoroughfares and residential areas, and creating or enhancing or expanding wildlife corridors or any other open space acquisitions and any expenses related for open space to serve the residents of the town. In 2004, the Board of Trustees at that time adopted a resolution that's up for consideration of a repeal, adopting guidelines and priorities for expenditures and revenues generated from the open space tax. However, because voters approved the open space tax pursuant to the specific purposes set forth in the 2001 ballot issue, this board has determined that no further clarification of spending priorities is required. The current resolution being considered by the board would repeal the 2004 resolution so that the funds from the open space tax are used in accordance with the purposes approved by the voters in 2001. I also attended the Open Space Advisory Committee in December, along with Trustee Pennington, and gave them an update on this pending resolution and answered any questions they might have had at that time.
Okay, thank you.
And they unanimously supported the repeal.
Okay, any board questions, discussions? Okay.
Sure. Yeah. And I just wanted to say that having been a part of this from the very beginning, I think that the board at the time and the Open Space Advisory Committee at the time and a lot of citizens in Superior were concerned that we would spend the money
That's right.
other than actually acquiring open space. And none of us anticipated that we'd be acquiring as much open space as we had at this point. And I do feel pretty confident that whatever properties that we want to acquire in the future, we will have the money that we need, regardless of whether we limit the money or not. So I think it's best to repeal this resolution. It just ties the hands of the town, and it's not necessary. You can tie your own hands in any way you want and how you want to spend it. So I support it.
Okay, Trustee Gregorsi?
So I do have to say, I've been on the board for 10 years, and this is a very unusual thing. I don't remember ever repealing a resolution before. It's very, very unusual, and yet it's the right thing to do. But I don't think that resolution get repealed every day. This doesn't happen very often at all. That's
true.
But
Yeah.
it is, given the circumstances now, we have plenty of money, actually, so I think it's a good to repeal it.
Okay, thank you. Trustee
You wanna
Johnson?
make a motion?
I would like to offer
Yeah,
opportunity
this
for
is-
public comment
Mhm.
if just want to make sure we're done. Anyone like to comment on this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, Trustee Johnson?
I'd like to make a resolution. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior repealing resolution number R-13, Series 2004, concerning priorities for spending open space sales tax revenues. Town of Superior resolution number R-6, Series 2016.
Motion by Trustee Dozell, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Do we need a roll call vote on this, or?
Are we spending, we're not
No,
spending.
we do
No,
not.
it's not. It's
Okay.
up and down.
All those in favor? Okay, passes unanimous. Thank you. All right, next is item number 13, approval of the advisory committees and planning commission work plans.
So in 2009, the board at that time decided to review and approve proposed annual work plans for each of the advisory committees and commissions at the beginning of each year. The process has been very productive and successful, I think, in providing direction and guidance to the committees and commissions for their upcoming year work plan. The board, included in the board's packet, is recommended work plans from each of the committees and commissions. Just a one point is the Youth Leadership Council was approved in October to coincide with their school semesters. Each of the committees and commissions have invested a lot of time and thought into the developing the work plans and projects for the year. They'll use these work plans as direction from the board on what to work on in 2016. As always, the board can make edits as you deem necessary.
Okay, thank you.
So can we go through each one and see if everyone or anyone has changes and then go to the next?
Sure.
So the Historical Commission work plan first. Anybody? The Open Space Advisory Committee work plan. I have one comment. At the very bottom, it's just a comment. Ongoing, continue to work with the town board and staff to acquire the level 3 property. And I'm not sure we really need to call it out. I think we could just say high priority properties. I think in the past we've always shied away from calling the property out in terms of legalities. Am I right?
Yes, that you are right.
Yeah.
Except you just called it out.
I did, but I had to read it, so.
Other than that,
You know?
I would agree.
Yeah.
There's no point to specify a specific property. That's kind of rule number one in negotiations.
It is
but-
kind of, but, you know.
Well, it's not like a secret to anybody, but there's
It's
no
not,
reason
right,
to
Right.
right.
Yeah.
specifically have it in there,
Yes.
but, you know.
Okay.
On that item, the agenda item says OSAC 2016 draft work plan, while the headline of the item says 2016 OSAC work plan, and I just want to make sure this is the OSAC work plan because they just approved it at the meeting second Wednesday. It is?
It's not the
Okay.
drafts, right?
It's the actual one, and
Right.
the same thing, draft work plan for ProStack.
Mhm.
I want to make sure it's the actual work plan.
Yeah, I'm not seeing draft anywhere
it's
here.
right here.
Nope, not mine. Mine does not say draft.
No, it says that in the
No,
headline.
agenda.
she doesn't
No.
get this the same way we do.
Oh.
It's not. There's no word draft.
But in any case, it's the actual plan, not the draft one.
Just
Okay.
wanted to make sure.
All good.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, so ProStack. I had one comment. Anybody else? No? Okay, my only comment is, in the fourth quarter, number 2, initiate naming process for the school parcel park. And I'm just wondering, is that kind of late in the process? When do we think that the school parcel will be under construction
open?
and completed?
Well, construction should start February, March with
Right.
mobilizing. If everything goes as planned, September, October completion timeline.
Okay. Well, my thoughts are maybe we move it up a quarter, just in case.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
agree with
we
that.
can definitely do that. Our thought was we'd have a finished park and people could get out there and see the finished product and maybe
And still call it
stir
the
some
El Dorado
ideas,
K through 8
generate
park.
some ideas.
And have a little contest kind of a thing. Yeah, that might be good. Yeah, that
What do
sounds
we
good.
give it?
But we can definitely
Let's give
move
it
it
a
up a
number
quarter
if
if the
you
board would like.
Patrick Hammer, town staff, just
Park
very
number
quickly,
3?
we wanted to make sure that flowers and plant material were in to give it certain characteristics if people wanted to choose
okay.
those characteristics as part of the naming, and all that'll come very late in the
Oh, what
naming
could that
process.
mean? Call me if you want to know.
All
So,
right.
but,
I think that's
Okay.
good. Naturally, there's
I
flexibility.
think I know where you're going.
To, yeah.
All right.
But I'm
So-
glad to see it in there, because that was one of the things, when we looked at the long sheets for tonight's discussion, we reference it as El Dorado Park, so I'm
Yeah.
really interested. And maybe it's a good thing to tell everybody, that's not necessarily the permanent name. We get to decide as a town what would make a nice name for that park.
I think it's safer to continue to call it School Parcel Park
Mhm.
because nobody thinks that's a permanent name.
Yeah.
No. And I'm sure it'll be something wildly different
6 of one, $500 million of the other. Okay.
Okay, so
Mhm.
we're agreeing that we were going to keep it in the fourth quarter?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the flexibility to move
Okay.
it when.
They can always choose
They
to
can.
move it.
Mhm.
All right, so now we're going to the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee work plan. I've got a number of things, so someone want to go first?
I think it's your show.
Mhm.
Anyone?
No, go ahead.
Okay. In the first quarter, number 4, review collection data for trash and recycling from town service providers and compare with other jurisdictions. We don't really have current data. And so I'm wondering if review collection data, and I know I'm here parsing words, but don't we really mean update the data?
I mean, we've been keeping track.
I mean,
of,
every time I see something come to the board on what we're using as a town for recycling, we don't even, it's old material. It's 2013 or 2014 or 2012.
Mhm.
We don't have updated data. So why would we review old data that we keep reviewing over and over and over? I mean, we need to collect new data and read it.
Yeah.
It's basically,
Yeah,
and I'm just hoping that that's just a misunderstanding and that what we're doing is actually that.
Yeah, so we've been working with HOA more closely because they collect their data with their hauler, and then we have our hauler. And there's been some discrepancies about recycling amounts and trash amounts, and so that's what we're trying to resolve and get consistent.
So will we get new data?
Mhm.
We will.
Yeah.
We will not be seeing the same data again.
Well, we'll update any data that needs to be updated, and then as the years progress from this point forward, we'll have new data. Yep.
Okay. All right, well, I hope to see that. Because that is a discussion that we have every year, and you know what I'm talking about, right? That we don't meet the percentage of how much we should be recycling, yet we still have old data that isn't helping us understand that. So anyway, so I have an issue with that one, and I want to see where we're going to go with that. Number 8, research the Garden in a Box program. We've done that before.
Mhm.
It didn't go anywhere. So, and Chris, we're on the work plans, and we've gone through each one, and we're on Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee, and asking if anyone else had any issues with the work plans. So if you want to jump in.
So is the garden in the box one that you'd like to remove? from the work
Well,
plan?
we've researched it before, so maybe we should discuss what that data is.
First.
Yeah. I know it didn't take off. So I'm wondering why we're revisiting it. I'll let you catch up, and whenever you want to jump in, Chris, just say something. On the second quarter,
Actually, I read through all the work plans, each one, I actually didn't have a problem.
Okay.
with it.
Alrighty. So the second quarter on the Recycling and Conservation Advisory Committee. Promote Boulder County's PACE program, which provides businesses technical advice, rebates, incentives, and certification for, are we doing Boulder County's PACE program?
Mhm.
We are, okay.
I mean, one
Because
of
there's
our
a lot on there.
one of our issues with the PACE program is it's designed to help businesses update their buildings to be more energy efficient.
Right.
Well, most of our buildings aren't that old compared to some you
Mhm.
see in the city of Boulder and stuff. So, you know, some of the businesses they reach out to, Target or Whole Foods or something, they just don't have the need for it. So
So you're saying
But
that
we
we've implemented this program?
we work with the county, we contact businesses to see if they have any opportunity to take advantage of some of the funds and programs, and if we're able to partner somebody up, we try to do that, but
But this is through Boulder County's program,
Right,
correct?
yeah.
Okay. And then the third one is a light bulb education mailer. Are we mailing that out to residents?
That would be the plan, yeah.
It seems kind of expensive to just educate people on light bulbs. Could we put it in the newsletter?
Yeah.
And that
In the
might-
website and
Yeah, I mean,
e-blast
that
and-
might make more sense, or send an e-blast out if it's that
Right,
important.
yeah, yeah.
But it just doesn't, I mean, it doesn't seem like it warrants sending just a letter to residents on light bulbs.
Right.
I think we could find other ways. And then, let's see here. Under second quarter, number 8. Expand compost options. Should be- Yeah, expand compost options. Is that because it's taken off, it's done really well?
Well, the thought with the compost is it's an option for residents to have curbside, but you pay for it. So the committee wants to explore the possibility of including it in the yard waste recycling site, the bin or, so.
On Honey Creek Lane?
Right, yeah, so
Okay.
residents wouldn't have to pay an additional fee to have it curbside.
So they would deliver it to the yard waste facility?
Yes.
And the composting would be done there?
Yes, yeah, and it would be picked up
I think it's a great idea.
however often it needed to be picked up.
So residents would no longer be calling Waste Connections?
Well, they could still do that. I mean, if somebody doesn't want to haul it down to the
Remember,
yard
that's the
waste
thing,
site, they
yeah.
may decide to still do it curbside.
And is that at a cost to the town?
Mhm.
It is,
Yep.
okay. And this is not something we had before?
No, so this would
new?
new, and this would need to come back to you because there's a cost associated with it.
Correct,
Yep.
okay. So when we say expand compost options, it was just a little misleading because I was not sure if this is something we're implementing or something that has already been done. So maybe these words are not
Yeah, we can
completely
look
correct.
at rewording that so it's
Um,
clear.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
the reason why I'm asking all these questions is some of these are just popping up and I've never seen them before. And I'm wondering, and it,
Well, they're
they're
all
implying
ideas
that
that they're
they're
going to be thinking about as they
Right.
work on them.
If-
Doesn't mean that they're going
They're
to
not being
do
implemented,
everything,
that's
yeah.
right, what I want to know is, are these new ideas that they're looking at to research, or are these new ideas that are being implemented? And I obviously,
Well,
you know,
nothing
as a
gets
board
I don't
member.
think they
implemented
can
without
implement
us.
it
Any
without
new,
our
yeah, any new
approval.
program
Okay,
or
well, I'm
cost
just-
would come back to the board. So we'll look at rewording that so it's clear.
Yeah, it's just not very clear, so that's why I'm going through this. The dog park compost program, we said we would evaluate it after a year. Are we at that point?
Yes, that will need to come back to you.
Okay.
So you can get the information, data, and decide if you want to continue on with it another year.
Okay, and these, at the very last bullet point, staffing resources under number 8. Obviously, that's part of the budget, and you're going to contemplate if this is going to be more expensive with staff. Do we
Yeah,
need
that-
to staff more people for some of these
Yeah,
services?
this would be a part-time consultant at a minimal cost to help with my staff to advertise and implement some of these programs that the board has okayed.
Okay, so this is new. This is not something we've done before.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, as we go through these, I'm just having a problem because we're introducing a number of new things and we're not making it very clear on here that these are new things that we are going to be looking at. And it appears that, you know, it's been on the work plan for years and years and years, and it's not. And so
We can.
I think that needs to be called out better.
We can identify, break them into 2 categories, new items and existing
Yeah.
programs, or can
Yeah.
definitely do that.
Because it's easy to gloss over this and think that these are all things we've been doing, but not all of them are. And it's good to know what you're looking at. In the third quarter, number 5, encourage recycling plans for all businesses. Now, where were we with that? As I recall, we had a very robust discussion about, we didn't feel comfortable having, going to businesses and kind of encouraging this recycling plan, especially Boulder County's recycling plan. And I know that you mentioned PACE up here earlier.
We were not comfortable with penalizing.
Right.
Right?
And
but that is what it is.
I'm glad they say encourage.
But that's not what that program is. Yeah, so,
So would you like to leave that in or take that out, or?
I mean, I think prohibits us from encouraging, but not penalizing. That was the whole
Yeah,
idea.
that was the
That's
big thing, is that we
businesses.
didn't want businesses to be charged a fee if they
Right.
weren't
That's right.
living up to a certain standard. But the program that I think was discussed was actually very valuable, it was good. It was a good opportunity to, and I think, wasn't Boulder County gonna be helping with that program? And I thought we were gonna ask the Chamber of Commerce if they could be a part of that and approach the businesses as a really good opportunity, a good program. So I think it's a good program, and it is just encouraging, it's not penalizing.
so what's the name of the program?
That's
Is
the
it-
PACE
it's the
one.
PACE program.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
PACE one.
And then
Okay,
we
because that's
talked
not
about
what
that.
this is saying. I don't know what that is.
Well,
This
it's
number 5.
PACE is to
But that's not what's.
encourage
I understand.
environmentally conservative energy and stuff like that.
That's
I-
further up. This
Yeah,
one doesn't
right.
say that. So I'm just wondering what we're doing.
Well, I think what we have to keep in mind, this is a work plan.
Well, I
It's
agree.
not an objective, it's not stated, we will do this. It's really, these are things we're going to consider as we go through. And if you look at the ProStack work plan, it looks almost identical to this, so I don't know why we're spending so much time going over it.
We've been
There
down
is a
this road
difference.
before.
I feel Deborah's frustration, and I felt it when I read it. With the other committees, we're in tune with those initiatives. They've been discussed, there are no surprises. And sometimes in this RCAC work plan, new things are popping up, and there's a little fear that if we don't discuss them here, that we're de facto authorizing
Well, they can't because they have to, they
things.
can't
Well,
do
it's
anything on their own.
backfired in the
Yeah.
past, so
Yeah.
we've got to be a little careful.
Well,
here.
I think that maybe then someone, I think we spend an inordinate, I can't even say that, inordinate amount of time talking about our CAC's work plan each year.
Well,
I don't know why.
In the past, though, I do agree that it was warranted, because there were, like, the charge on the bag fee was part of their work plan in the past. And there was other things that were actually penalizing residents and businesses that I think were very unwarranted. I honestly, when I opened this up and was gonna review their work plan, I was getting ready to get my, but I was surprised. I said, I can't really find anything in here that I don't disagree with. I think this is great. Encourage recycling plans for business. I think that's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, let's encourage everybody to recycle more.
But it's not awesome if what it really means is.
Well, then if you.
I agree,
Yeah,
yes.
and I think
Yeah.
that, let's take it for what it says here, and then as they go through the year, we can monitor and participate in their
Right.
committee meetings, and if you have a concern, then I think, like Deborah, maybe you should become the representative on the RCAC.
Well, no, Joe is the rep, and I think
Yeah.
he enjoys that, and I'm disappointed he wasn't here to defend this.
Yeah. Well, but you can always have two people, it doesn't matter, two
But
people.
Rita, I think there's history with RCAC that's unlike.
I believe let history lie
Yeah.
where it needs to lie.
And I'm just letting you know that there's the reason why I
only-
think Deborah is going through with a fine tooth comb. There's a
It's-
precedent. That's
It
why.
was a two-way street. They spent a great deal of time and effort on an initiative that, when it reached the board, was not well received. And it really created negative response from the committee. And so we want to
Well,
be
it seems like maybe
proactive
you've
and
already
positive.
solved some of that by having good representation from staff
But
and
I'm
the
just,
board.
I'm just saying, I
And so-
understand the attention
Yeah.
to detail.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have fourth quarter comments?
Good.
Can I ask one last question, though, about, or kind of a side question on RCAC? How are they doing member-wise, and
getting quorums and all that? Are they?
Small group now.
Yeah, we have, I think, 6 members out of 9.
No, I think it was 7. We changed it to 7.
Yeah.
Was
No.
the max.
No, it's 9.
Are you sure?
Yep. Yep,
We
yep.
Because
talked about
at one
it, but we
point they
didn't do
lowered
it.
it to 7 because they didn't have enough
Yeah,
members.
yeah.
We didn't do
When
that.
we did, we
They changed
reworked all the
quorum
committees, we made them all the
before?
same, but they do have at times issues with quorums.
Okay.
So,
I
Well,
think there's some residents out here would like to raise their hand to be members of the RCAC.
well, it was a full committee for a while there,
Yeah.
so I would like to understand sort of what's happening.
Yeah, yeah.
And if there's an issue that needs to be brought to us, I would hope it would be.
Well, I think we need to move to the last one, which is really detailed, and that's the planning
Oh,
commission.
yeah.
so.
Yeah, I had a comment on that one, too.
Okay, go ahead.
It took me 1 second to read it. I don't have anything. I don't.
Okay.
Well,
All right, anyone have
I think
anything?
we just need to make a, move to approve, right? The 5 advisory committee?
Anyone have any public comment on this item? Okay. Just check.
yeah,
That's all we have to do, right?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So I'm very hesitant to pass the RCAC work plan because, I mean, some of this I just don't know what it is. I don't know what I'm approving.
Would you like us to
Just
go
more
back and make
detail?
modifications based off of your comments and bring it back?
Just more detail? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I just feel hesitant.
Or can we make a motion to approve it with the understanding or the condition that you'll make modifications based on her comments, or all of our comments?
But which, I guess, I'm sorry, I missed the first part of it, but was there anything that was real material? Because honestly, I don't see an issue at all with the RCAC plan. And I've been one of the more vocal ones in the past of their plan. So I hate to slow them up again if we don't need to.
Right, that's why I was saying, let's make the motion, and if
Well, and we
staff
can do that. That's
uses the
fine.
comments that primarily Deb had, to make some modifications to it after we've
Okay.
approved it. I'm with you, Chris. I think we can go ahead without, because it's a work plan.
Yeah.
It's not a commitment or an objectives to meet these things specifically. It's just their discussion points and their
actually,
work.
I totally disagree with that comment. The work plan, the reason why we developed work plans was so that the committees had a charge that they could take off and do, and not constantly be coming back to the board asking if they could do it. Can we do this? Can we do this? And once the work plan is approved, that's their charge for the year.
They're going to work on it, but they can't commission anything or implement anything without bringing it back to us.
So I move that we approve the 4 advisory committee and commission work for 2016 plans, and then for RCAC, we'll bring it back at the next meeting, based on the recommendations that Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
I second that.
Okay, motion by trustee Gregoris, second by Mayor Pro Tem Williams. Discussion?
I don't think any reason why we have to single one out, but
Yeah.
I have a problem
So now I'm torn
with
whether I
that.
want to just vote no.
Yeah, I will vote no on this motion, so
Yeah.
I'll just tell you that right now, because I don't know why we can't move them all forward.
When do, I'm sorry, so discussion, when do we have dinner with RCAC?
Let's see, it would be in March, I believe, the first meeting in March.
I'm not saying we should wait until March.
No, no.
Well, no, I was hoping
No,
it
we
would be
just
sooner
want
than that, so that we
clarification
could
on some of
approve
these
it, but
things.
then let's meet with them.
Well,
Really-
one suggestion is we could make modifications to their work plan, send it to the board for review. If you're okay with that, then it doesn't need to come back. If you're not okay with those revisions based on your comments, then it would need to come back.
So first of all, there's a motion here, so we need to finish
Right,
the motion.
yes.
up and
Well,
down
no,
and
this is
then-
discussion, though,
This
so.
is a discussion on the
So
motion.
I guess, was there anything in their first quarter that there was an issue with that you wanted to change?
It wasn't that I wanted to change it. It was the first quarter, number 4, review collection data on trash and recycling from the town service providers and compare with other jurisdictions. Now, we've gotten that data before, and I want to know, is it going to be new, updated data? Or is it going to be the same stuff we've been
And the
seeing?
answer was yes, so that's
Okay,
kind of resolved.
okay.
I'm going to actually vote yes for 4 and this one to come back. And the reason why, too many things in this plan are put forth without saying what the objective is to do. And also, it is very unclear, as has been discussed, whether or not it's a new initiative or a continuing initiative. And I need that detailed, and I don't believe 1 meeting or 2 meetings is going to
Make or
bollocks the
break the
works.
plan, right.
So I feel things are clearer from the other work plans about what their objectives are, where I'm not clear here. So I'm going to vote yes on this motion.
Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, motion passes. We've got the couple of work plans approved, and we'll see the RCAC work plan come back. Okay?
I mean, is that something that can come back in a couple of weeks, do you think, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want us to wait
That would
until
be my
March.
plan.
No,
I wouldn't either, yeah.
we don't need to.
Okay.
Okay, before we go on to 14, I want to circle back to trustee Hanson
Okay.
for announcements.
Yeah, yeah,
Give you an
okay.
opportunity to make announcements.
So for reports and comments, I attended a ProStack meeting on Wednesday, and there was 3 agenda items that were heavily discussed. The first one was the proposed trails in Coal Creek Crossing. If you recall, there's a trail that runs north-south that comes out of Coal Creek Crossing and connects into the Meadowlark Trail. Is it Meadowlark Trail?
Single tree on Maple.
Single Tree, I'm sorry. And then there's another one that runs east-west behind the homes. So there's a lot of discussion about removing the proposed plan that run, or the trail that runs east-west. But there ended up being 2 motions. One of them was to remove both trails, but that motion failed. But the motion to remove only the east-west trail was approved 7-1. So I'm not sure what we do next on that as a town. Do we?
I reported, Chris and mine, that OSAC removed both. So
Okay.
I think it only can come back to the board to be
Okay,
decided.
okay. The next discussion item that was heavily discussed again, and was, we did the same thing last year, was programming Kupfer Field for T-ball. There was some discussion about opening up more programming on that field, but that was pretty much shot down. But again, it was 5-3 in favor of extending another year. That the committee members that voted in the affirmative felt that it really wasn't as big of an impact on the original town. So we wanted to do it again. So
Was that the majority or the? what
5 to
position?
3 in favor of programming again for T-ball.
So
Under
does
the-
that have to come to the board?
I don't think so. I think that we decided that we would do it on a year trial basis, and if it was fine, that we would extend it again. Do we need to have it come back to the board?
Not unless you want to make a change.
Yeah, no, I think that there wasn't going to be any changes. Patrick, we're same amount of hours that we were going to allocate. The one thing that I wasn't aware of is that it wasn't limited to just this one youth baseball organization. So if there was another organization that came ahead of them, they would get the spots. I thought it was just for Monarch Little League, but that's not the case.
Trustee Hanson, you're correct. It would be open on first come, first serve for T-ball teams who want to use that field. The town wouldn't get in the business of trying to pick which
Are
organization.
these Superior T-ball teams?
Teams that are affiliated through Superior, correct? Monarch
Okay.
Little League, YMCA, groups like that. The hours that were allocated were 6 hours per week, left up to the discretion of the sports group on how they wanted to use that 6 hours. Last year, Monarch League chose to use all 6 of those hours on Saturday to get the T-ball games in, and that seemed to work pretty well, and that's what was discussed during the committee meeting.
Yep. Okay. And then the last discussion item was the Eldo Park site. And there were some residents that attended the meeting and voiced their comments. Overall, the ProStack was a little discouraged by the potential decision to possibly exclude the basketball court. The conversation was that there was extensive outreach in the community. A lot of residents wanted a basketball court, and ProStack felt that they did their due diligence. And if we're going to pull things out like that, why do we want to expect them to go through this every time we put in a new park? So I think Peter may come up and speak later tonight, but overwhelmingly the ProStack was in favor of keeping the park the way it is. And there were several reasons why they felt that the basketball courts weren't going to be an issue like some thought that they would be. And I think that we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But overwhelmingly, ProStack was in favor of keeping it the way it is. And that's it.
Okay, thank you, Trustee
Thanks.
Hanson. All right, next on the agenda is item number 14, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Vargas Property Services for flower bed installation and maintenance.
Thank you. Town's landscape plan calls for planting of annual color flowers and high visibility flower beds throughout the community. Our landscape contractors install these flowers as an extension of their landscape maintenance contract. Incorporating this work into the landscape's contractors' overall responsibilities has ensured that the town's standards were achieved, including the level and consistency of care for the plant material, on-site maintenance and management of the plant material, and comprehensive irrigation scheduling. The agenda item for tonight is the board's consideration of an agreement to complete this year's flower bed installation with Vargas Property Services. Formal proposals to provide this service were solicited in 2012. And the town's annual flower bed installation program will be up for bid at the end of this year, with work to begin next year with whoever is selected at that time. Staff has developed a schedule 4 years ago that calls for the replacement of annual flower varieties traditionally planted throughout town with predominantly perennial species, creating a more diverse and colorful selection. As of 2016, approximately 80% of the 20,000 square feet of flower beds in town have been converted to perennials. The remaining 20% adjacent to monument signs along McCaslin Boulevard, Colton Road, Superior Marketplace, and high visibility medians make up the rest of the flower beds with the annual color. The 2000 agreement calls for continuation of cottage-style flower garden theme that was implemented previous years, which has been well received throughout the community. Savings as a result of additional perennials for the town is about 5 to 10% as the material establishes throughout the season. Budget implications for this are Class 1 landscape fee of $44,095. Class 2 general fund is $27,853. And Class 5 Superior McCaslin Interchange District cost is $26,705 for a total of $98,653. Staff's recommending approval of the contract. Patrick Hammer is here, as well as our contractor, to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, Trustee Pennington.
So, Patrick, what is the trend? Let's say the 5-year trend. Are we coming down in price, or is inflation what's happening?
The price of this contract has stayed fairly flat. We went back several years, and it looks like it's kind of this static, kind of mid to upper 90s number in terms of installation to make sure we're getting the look that we want throughout town. We have done our best to track through maintenance, watering, and plant replacement savings, and we have realized some. It's not a huge number, as you can see, maybe 5 to 10%. But for us to really accomplish that aesthetic that we want in town, a lot of these beds, the material gets pulled and replanted on an annual basis, regardless of the plant species. There are some beds that do great, but the really high visibility beds that get a lot of attention, we do put a lot of resources in those beds, in those areas, and it's kept that price fairly static throughout the years.
So in your opinion, is the move to perennials a good one?
I think aesthetically, it absolutely accomplishes that cottage style look that has been really, really well received. We receive far more positive comments about the flowers than negative, and I think a lot of that has to do with the diversity in the species. In terms of a cost, I really think it's probably a wash. Maintenance, we don't maybe replace as much plant material as we had previously, but we also make sure that those beds, especially in the high visibility areas, get a lot of attention. So it's almost even a wash maybe through maintenance as well.
And then just a comment from me, I'm a huge fan of the cottage look, which means lots of color and variety and all that, but I don't want it to look exactly like last year. So we've had Colton Road, all the medians and all the medians south on Indiana towards El Dorado K8 look identical for 2 years. I just would put my personal request in that they change them up a little. And then the issue of overplanting. Those medians, I believe, were really jam-packed to the demise of some of the stock in them. They were forced out.
After the December 15th meeting, when we heard very similar comments, we've addressed a lot of those with Vargas, and Elena and Victor here both to speak to the change in the planting plan if you'd like more detail. But yet we've worked to mix it up. We also heard some comments last year about maybe changing it up south of Colton in certain areas, which we're absolutely willing to do, and already working on some ideas for planting to make sure it looks a little more even throughout the year.
Good. Look forward to it.
Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So based on this, you've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now towards the perennials, would you change that? Or would you continue this way?
I think staff, we're a little biased. It looks amazing. And we always prefer the really nice comments over the really rough ones that we get sometimes. It's been a look that's been really successful. The other kind of interesting thing that we've noticed is it's almost kind of become a tradition for people to go out and deadhead those plants at the end of the year. So we get calls every season saying, hey, it's okay that we go out and take the seeds, right? So there's been almost some kind of fun side benefits as well.
Okay. So you would continue the program?
Yeah, I think aesthetically, as long as it's accomplishing what we want as a town, it's been pretty successful.
And it's no increase in cost, which was what our goal was. But I have one other question. On the McCaslin Bridge and the medians on the bridge, is the Superior side going to look vastly different than the Louisville side? Well,
We have been working for the last several months with the designer to come up with a landscaping plan and what we're calling the Southwest Quad, and we do believe that it'll look substantially different with trees, ornamental trees, and flower material to accompany the trail from the BRT station to the underpass.
So we're working with Louisville to create a unified look.
Staff has not at this time been coordinating the planting
So we'll
plan.
know exactly where half is, right? Where our half is and
Are
where
you
Louisville.
talking on the bridge itself?
I'm
or
talking
on
on
Oh.
the bridge.
Are we having flowers on the
I
bridge?
apologize. No,
And those
Isn't there
landscape
any
plans are part of the contract and design that was part of the whole project.
Uh-huh.
So those have been set for both sides, and
Okay.
they do look similar. But Patrick's talking about on
On our side.
Yeah, on our side.
Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I was just talking about the bridge.
Yeah, sorry about
itself. Okay, so that's not us. That's not in this contract.
No, that's part of Ames
Okay.
and CDOT's contract. yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Jessup?
Are the plantings in the street pop-outs and places in original town part of this contract too?
correct.
Okay, and last year I know I had several comments from people in original town that there were certain spots, I know they're very narrow and they're hard to plant and keep watered and things like that, but maybe we should look at whether there's some places where instead of putting annuals in, maybe more perennials that would last, like, the grasses. I notice there are places as I go toward my home, there's places where they put in grasses, the ornamental grasses, and then put annuals in front of it, and it looks stupendous, And I see a lot of people out there taking pictures at certain spots. because it looks so good. But in Original Town, I have to say, there were some corners, and just think about that as you go through planting this year. Maybe they're too narrow of a space and they don't get watered correctly. We should think about doing something else then, you know, instead of trying to get something to grow in a very narrow little, between two curbs, you know, and there's no dirt and ability to water.
Okay. Trustee Pennington?
I would like to recommend approval. Can I read? Is it time for a
Yes.
vote? Of resolution number R7, Series 2016, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving an agreement with Vargas Property Services for flower bed installation.
Okay, motion by Trustee Pennington and second by Trustee Gregoris. Roll call vote?
Folsom?
Yes.
Hanson?
Yes.
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Motion passes unanimously, and thanks to staff and our contractor for job well done. I think it's, I think we have a great program there, and it'll be great to see that continue, so thank you. All right, next on our agenda is number 15, adoption of a resolution approving an agreement with Matrix Design Group for the design of the Superior Town Center, Parks 1 and 2.
Thank you. For the past 3 years, members of the town's Park, Recreation, Open Space and Trails Advisory Committee, staff, and consultants have conducted a thorough community engagement process with the goal of identifying potential uses that could fit within the 5 civic parcels identified in the Superior Town Center. The process involves several professional facilitated community meetings that allowed citizens multiple opportunities to express their thoughts and opinions about potential park and civic uses. As a result of the public engagement process, a concept plan for all 5 civic space park parcels was created and shown to the board. The board's initial review of the concept plan occurred in June of 2014. Several months later, in early 2015, the board provided direction to staff for the design team to further refine the conceptual design, specifically focusing on park parcels 1 and 2, with long-term goal of bringing forward an FDP submittal in 2016. In your cover memo is a timeline of the meetings that occurred from 2014 to 2015. Tonight's agenda item is consideration of an agreement with Matrix Design Group for consulting and professionally planning and designing services to create FDP submittals for the Superior Town Center Park parcels 1 and 2. The town did a request for qualifications through our procurement services. The town received 6 RFQ submittals from firms that specialize in building parks and civic uses within floodways. Staff selected 3 firms from the submittal list for interviews. The selected firms were also required to submit a fee schedule for those services and a project timeline. The 3 that were selected for this were Matrix Design Group, THK, and RPA. In the end, Matrix Design Group is provided, in staff's opinion, the lowest cost and most responsive submittal. The firm has completed several park development projects for cities throughout the region and across the state and provided excellent references. Based upon the submittals received, fee schedule and project timeline, staff is recommending Matrix Design Group be selected to complete the work. If approved, work would begin in February next month, with the first committee and board reviews to begin in April. Matrix Design Group has completed a number of projects. We listed 4: Infinity Park in Glendale, Colorado, South Platte River and Lakewood Gulch restoration with urban drainage and flood control district in Denver, the Westerly Creek Stream restoration in Stapleton, and the Trails Recreation Center, Arapahoe Park Recreation District. Budget is allocated $200,000 for this work this year, with the contract amount of $173,250 for these services.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So I want to understand why we're taking the 200,000 or whatever, 173 From the capital improvement program fund?
Well, which fund would, is there another fund you think it would come from? or-
Well, this is the town center,
Mhm.
and I was thinking that it would be coming from the TIF, and not the 10 million portion of the TIF, but the
Just the general?
other,
Yeah.
like maybe the 6.2, or maybe not even that, maybe something else.
In the agreements we have with the master developer, one of the things that we wanted to make sure we had control of was planning and design of these civic spaces. So as part of that, we agreed to pay for the cost of those design services, rather than it being a direct TIF reimbursable cost.
That is specifically
Is that correct?
spelled out in our agreement?
Yes.
I'll look for
Can
it.
I'm looking at
somebody-
the attorney.
I'll look for it now.
Yeah, I'd like that read.
Sure.
Yes. I do recall that discussion, but I don't recall that we made that as a stipulation.
Is that your only concern?
Yep.
Another concern I have is the timing of this, because as I understand, a PDA is coming forth that modifies the southern border of Park 1, and thereby would modify some of the designs. For example, we have this terrace seating that might be affected, the parking lot affected, and that kind of stuff. So I don't understand how we can award this unless we actually say in the contract it's not to begin until after whatever approval of Park 1.
So it's parcel 2?
I mean parcel 2, yeah.
And it's impacted by the proposal to move Creek View Way, I think it's called,
Right.
next to the park. And it does have some impacts, but nothing that would prevent, the biggest thing that we have to work with the master developer to work through is the bridge, because it has impacts. And that's something we'll
What
have
are you
to-
calling the bridge?
the Marshall Road Bridge.
Bridge?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would have the biggest impact on those two parcels.
I'd have to look at.
But the moving of the boundary may have some impact, but
Yeah.
it should be minimal.
To me, it sort of had major impact on that southern edge,
Mhm.
where the terrace seating, the entrance from the promenade, the parking lot to the left of the, what's perceived as a brew pub or whatever. I think enough of it's in flux that it makes me a little uncomfortable.
Patrick, do you have something?
Yeah, just to address that really very quickly is when we actually put this out for bid, we spent significant time in dialogue with prospective firms, and then when we did detailed interviews with 3 firms and then narrowed it down to matrix to really emphasize that there's going to be that kind of back and forth between the town, the master developer, to make this project successful. So the firms are aware of it. We specifically looked at firms who had done similar projects. So we have made everybody well aware of those kind of shifts and maneuvers and have anticipated those timelines to the best of our ability with this process as well.
So you can assure me that we are not going to hear as a board that you got to approve this quickly because otherwise we're going to be holding up the design firm.
Oh, you mean
Yeah.
the
That PDA approval
No,
is major. I mean, it could take a while.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the park pieces can work in conjunction, or as you're saying, almost a little bit secondary. There are things that will have to be determined, and I do. If the timeline's in flux, then I think that the firm that we've chosen is willing to work with that. We've set a pretty aggressive timeline just because we'd like to get this going and get this process started sooner rather than later.
Is that the variable that firm THK was referring to when they talk about this potential 25% cost reduction if design refinement and review efficiencies are realized?
There was some comments from the THK about maybe going back to the public process and how quickly that could be streamlined. So that actually had more to do with their staff attending public meetings and creating presentations for those public meetings, or if it would just be a streamlined process to begin the FDP designs.
So if this is approved tonight, when does Matrix Design start its work?
We would probably hold a kickoff meeting as early as next month, transition over as much data we have from the existing work from Design Concepts, as well as information that we're receiving from the master developer, and really get this underway as soon as possible.
And this is a flat fee, there are no caveats in the contract that if it takes longer than X, there's additional monies involved?
We do have, it's a good question. If we were to need to go back to public meetings, and at the board's request we wanted to host public engagement meetings or have work done above and beyond this scope, then that price would change. As of right now, we've let Matrix know to plan on meeting with the board and having materials ready for advisory committees, but not going back for full-on public engagement to kind of rehash out what those uses would be. If the board would like to see that kind of engagement, that price would probably escalate a little bit. We've also been in very early discussions about looking at the creek corridor and possibly integrating a larger creek corridor cleanup plan or restoration plan in conjunction with this. But that would come forward maybe as at a later date as a separate item, if you will.
That was one of my very precise questions, because I didn't see that in here at all. And I think we need to have that combined, that we need to create the creek experience and the creek corridor at the same time as we're building out Parks 1 and 2, which are, they're actually 3 different areas. So, and the FTP necessarily won't, I don't know, originally, I know the applicant, the developer, had said they have nothing to do with the Coal Creek corridor itself, and that's true. They only have to do with the park areas. But I think we definitely need to have that incorporated in there. And I was going to ask if it's in this price, and if it isn't, we should make sure that we get something going with that too, and understand that. And then when would we expect a completed FDP? I didn't see that in any dates in there. I mean, just kind of a timing, not a specific 13th of December or something, but some kind of a specific.
Target we have is for the committee and board reviews to begin in April.
Of this design that they're going to come up with. Okay. And then, and then once it gets through the committees and the board, then sometime in the summer, it would go to the developer to create an FDP, or we would create the FDP and hand it off. Because we've been working with them at the same time, and it would meet all their requirements to do that. Okay, so by midsummer, we should be able to, or early summer, I should say, we should probably, if everything goes okay, have an FDP that could be handed off to the developer.
That's correct.
Okay, that'd be great. And then, so it says in here, okay, so talking about areas again, I want to, it talks about, well, is the south side of Coal Creek on the west? Is that part of Park 1, or is that part of Park 2?
South side towards BVI will be.
No, I said west. South side of Coal Creek.
Adjacent to McCaslin.
McCaslin. There's grass and park green
one.
space in the front floodplain, and is that part of Park 1?
Park
Or-
1.
Okay, because Park 1 goes both on the north side of Coal Creek itself and on the south side of Coal Creek.
Park 1 does not.
No.
Park 1 is
So
on the one, it's on this side.
Trustee
So
Brazil,
that's why I'm
this
asking the
is-
question.
This is where that
Coal Creek corridor gets in.
plan comes into play, yeah.
Okay, because I
That's
think that, there's some green space that's on the PD plan that isn't necessarily in the floodplain, but what's in the floodplain, that's where we cross over. Some of the floodplain is
actually part of the parks, and some of it is the creek itself, which, you know, so sometimes the Coal Creek corridor floodplain is in a park, but sometimes it's just the Coal Creek corridor, and I think we
Right.
need a better understanding of when we're, and then, like I said, the green space that I can remember Trustee Pennington talking about, the south side of the creek, closest to McCaslin. You know, she always wanted to be able to.
Southwest.
Yeah, wanted to put a blanket down and read a book, and because there's some grass area
That
there.
was the northwest.
Not,
The
it's on the south
southwest
side of
is
the creek.
natural.
No, on the south side of the creek. That side of the creek.
That's
Oh.
natural on Park One.
Well, okay, we don't need to answer it now, but I just want to, I didn't see that in any of these agreements, any discussion about the south side of Coal Creek itself, from McCaslin heading east, up to where the
Marshall.
field is gonna be. Yeah,
To the
past
Marshall
Marshall.
research.
So that area there between McCaslin and as Marshall comes across the creek itself, what's gonna happen there? You don't have to answer now, just make sure that that's, I would
Yeah.
expect to see a plan for that green space as well.
Yep.
And then it talks about the water needs for the turf grass areas in the field.
The turf.
The turf grass
The-
area,
the
water
grass.
for the grass, the turf grass in the field, which is from Marshall to up to 36 on the south side of Coal Creek. But it doesn't talk about any water needs for grassy areas in Parks 1 and Park 2. In the agreement itself, you know, so I just want to make sure we're not missing anything. And then landscaping plantings, will those be described as a work product out of this as well?
Yeah,
That's not described in the agreement either. It's not defined that there will be a landscaping plan with plants defined for the area.
that I don't, at the FDP level, I don't think we would actually get to this specific plant species.
Oh, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
So at the final
Very-
development plan, we'll have final grading, final irrigation, final planning, everything will be final.
Right, but what I'm saying is, in the agreement itself,
Mm-hmm.
the contractual agreement with this company, it doesn't specifically call out that that's one
Okay.
of their deliverables. It says FDP, but it talks about water needs for the grass field, but it doesn't say anything about landscaping plantings that will be required, you know, because that, and then the Coal Creek corridor, of course, needs to be included somehow, somewhere in this. And then my last comment about this was that the lighting for the field, just, you know, got to make sure that that's compatible with the residences that are going to live along that field, and that lighting shines down and not out. And is it already predetermined and approved that we're going to have lighting on that field? I'm not making a
I'd
debate
like-
about that.
I'd like to have that verified.
Okay.
We have a lighting analysis that's been done to show spillage and how it's contained, and so we'll have all that for you.
But verification that was approved, that lighting was approved is what I would
Nothing's
like.
approved until you approve the final development plan. Right now, all you have is concept plans.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so it mentions lighting in there, but from our perspective, we still can have the discussion. And I'm not arguing one way or the other. I
Right.
don't have a position on whether there should be lights or shouldn't. I just want to make sure if there are, it's been approved to be there or agreed to be there, and then by both the developer as well as by the town. And then that we do the right kind of lights to make it work.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, Trustee Hanson.
Matt, I heard you say that the plans will go through the committees.
Yep.
But will ProStack be a part of the planning process at the beginning, and will OSAC be part of the creek corridor improvement process as well?
Yes. So, yeah, both committees will be involved in both. We need to provide them something for them to review. So that'll be our work taking the conceptual plans to the final development plan, and once we get to a certain level of detail, then we can provide it to those committees and get their input.
Okay, thank you.
So that it's the most productive meeting that they can have.
Did Kendra find that language?
Yeah, it's in section 4.1 of the development agreement that says that the town shall pay for the cost of the design.
Can you read that to me?
Let me pull it up. The town shall be responsible for all costs associated with the design and construction of the civic space.
No, you said civic space.
Yes,
That's not parks.
it is parks, actually. It's
Yes.
defined in the agreement as to include public parks.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion, any public comment on this?
Evening, I'm Kevin Ryan, 3101 West Torreys Peak. Not here to necessarily speak about this, but I'm interested. So I asked a lot of questions around the financing, around the TIF financing. You were kind enough to answer one of my questions that made it into the financing overview on June 26, 2013. What are the current general government operational costs, parks, police, et cetera, for the compared new expenses for the town center? You responded to that, and the total costs, total incremental expenses were about $1 million, of which $250,000 is for capital, general fund. So if this is $200,000 of the total general fund, and it doesn't include the civic space design, the numbers just don't seem to work. So it's $200,000 for the design of the park. You have a $250,000 total budget for general fund. So it looks like some reconciliation needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? And then we probably should get a response to that.
Peter Bottomley, ProSec Chair. I'm curious about that language as well, because if you're saying that the design comes out of the town's pocket separate from it's not reimbursable by the TIF, you said design and construction of the parks. So does that mean that the construction of the park is not also recouped by that $10 million that's been discussed in the TIF? Just pose that question.
Thank you.
Oh.
Any additional comments? Okay. I think it would be good to get some
Answers.
responses to those questions.
I can't answer right now. I apologize. I'm not prepared to answer that right now.
Can you read it again then? Just read.
Yeah, so what I read was from section 4.1 of the development agreement. Hold on, I'll pull it up again. The town shall design the civic space in consultation with and cooperation with the developer. The town shall be responsible for all costs associated with design and construction of the civic space. Notwithstanding that the design may be reviewed and commented upon by developer, and notwithstanding any other input developer may have with respect to the civic space, the town will be solely responsible for the design, function, and maintenance of the civic space.
And then when you look at the cost-sharing agreement
Right.
and Exhibit B, we go back to this Exhibit B, they have specific costs included in Exhibit B for construction of these parcels.
Right, so, yeah, it's not as easy, this goes back to the two agreements plus the exhibit. I was trying to give you an easy answer, but none of this is easy, unfortunately.
Well, I think what we have, though, is a combining of civic, community, parks space and amenities associated with that. Because originally, back in early 2013, after the first agreement was signed with the developer, there was discussion about the possibility of the town building a new civic building, which would be a town hall. So there is some confusion, I think, or maybe we're mixing the same words and defining them differently depending on what paragraph we're taking them out of. But we originally talked about the potential of putting a civic building. We even have drawings in the PD plan amendment that shows what a civic building could possibly, which would be a replacement of town hall. So I think that we maybe need to do a little bit more research into this and understand what we're talking about, because clearly we as a town, if we wanted to build a new town hall in the town center, would have been responsible for designing and constructing that and paying for it. Building
Yeah.
this, but not the community area that we've been talking about. It's separate from, there were two buildings that could have been there. One is a community area, I mean, we're calling it community now. And the other was the civic space was a replacement, potential replacement for this building. So I think we should go back and look at that, but we also very clearly, many times, as I sat back there, not up here, heard and talked about that because Coal Creek was so important to us and the parks were so important to us as a town that we wanted a hand in designing them. And so we said we would help pay for, out of our fund, to design the parks that we wanted. And so I think paying some amount of money to design the park is not uncalled for. I mean, we should pay something to actually create the design and be able to hand it off to the developer who will then implement the FDP that we've designed. And they've agreed to it, the developers agreed to that. So, and then the question about how much money, well, in the general fund this year, we have $250,000. Where's Kevin Ryan? So to pay for designing, but that doesn't mean next year we won't have that money again to use for designs of further things. So I think, we're kind of mixing apples and tangerines here, so originally civic space was a potential of replacing this building in the town center, and that would have been our responsibility.
And civic space is defined very specifically in the cost-sharing agreement.
Right.
And it includes parks, town hall, rec center, library, public park improvements, multipurpose athletic fields. So it includes all of these things in the
In the
cost-sharing.
final one.
Okay, go to
Yes.
Exhibit B, though. The breakdown on Exhibit B at the bottom of Exhibit B, where it breaks it down to 6 million and 4 million. What's the 6 million called and what's the 4 million called?
Okay, let me get there. I don't even have Exhibit B.
And there's quite a bit of time between March of 2013, when the first developer agreement and financing agreement was signed, and October of 13? 14, no, or whenever we actually did the cost-sharing agreement. A lot of time and discussions passed.
And I was assured that the cost-sharing agreement prevailed, that it was the final
It
nuts
was.
and bolts
And that's what
document.
changed a lot of the original thinking to that. The cost-sharing agreement then took the civic and turned it into more than just the replacement of town center.
Now, I've always understood civic space to be potentially a town hall, potentially a community center,
So that's the 4 million right
fields,
here.
parks and all that. That's always been very clear to me.
That's how it ended up at the
Okay, so
end
that's
in the
what we-
cost-sharing agreement. In the original agreement from March of 2013, though, if you read it, it calls it out in separate spaces,
Well, Exhibit B calls it out, too.
Yeah, Exhibit B calls it out, and so
which replaces
Exhibit
the
B calls it
March
out of the 4
agreement.
million.
What's it called, 4 million? What is that
Says-
description?
Public park improvements, amenities, and facilities.
Public park improvements, amenities is 4 million. It doesn't say civic space there.
No,
That's what, and what does the 6 million say?
civic space.
Right, and see, this is where exactly what Rita's saying. Months pass, And it starts getting much more finite. It's a concept in the development agreement. It's worked on, the PD is approved, it becomes more and more finite, and cost-sharing agreement's the last document.
That's correct.
It's very finite at that point, and we call the 6 million civic and the 4 million parks, recreation, and whatever. So this is why this discussion needs to be had. It's confusing to me. While I agree, this is not a case of whether or not the town should pay, it's where should those monies come out of.
Right.
Okay. Where are we with?
I don't
So
feel I can vote
yeah.
on this thing until I have more clarity.
What do we need?
Yeah, I guess that I need to know what you need, because I'm not,
Right.
I'm not understanding what you need, perhaps.
I'm troubled by it coming out, just what you said, of the capital improvement
Right.
fund.
That's the original question I asked 45 minutes ago. Is, why is it coming out of the capital improvement program fund? And now, I think we've come full circle. We can't answer that.
Well, we did say that we wanted to be, as a town, responsible for the design of those parks,
I
1 and
get
2.
that.
Yeah.
I
So
totally-
somewhere,
Yes.
and the 4 million now says amenities and facilities. Doesn't say design, I don't think it does in there. So I mean, I can wrap my head around that we need to pay something to design the parks to our specifications as a town. But then after that, now, there's no other construction costs that should come out of our general fund to build that park. That's where I draw the line and say, no more. That comes out of that $4 million.
That's how I read the agreements.
What I need, actually, before I can vote on this, if I have to vote on it tonight, I'm voting it down because there's too much uncertainty. What I need is for Kendra to prepare what these different documents say and the dates at which those documents were forged and the intent of those documents. To me, the cost-sharing agreement was intended to prevail. So I'm going to actually pull it up and read it.
And I
And
did
see what
send
it
you,
says.
I did send you the memo that I prepared with all the dates and what supersedes what. Yes.
Okay.
I just, because I prepared that last year and I did that.
Okay.
So,
Okay, well, I'm going to have to take 2 weeks to read it and understand it and then come back. Otherwise, I'm going to have to vote no tonight.
I don't have any problem with, as I said, using money out of the general fund to design 2 parks, Parks 1 and 2, to meet our needs, as a town. But I have more other questions about the agreement, which I think we should nail down before we can actually vote on this actual agreement. Like, make sure we have which parts are included and what isn't, and what we're going to design here. What areas we're going to design. Because I wasn't able to read that out of the agreement to make sure, like the south side of Coal Creek and, and other, because there's grass areas on the north side of Coal Creek and Park 1 that wasn't mentioned in here. It only talked about the water needs for the field. There's some things that are missing, I think, in the agreement, in the deliverables of the agreement, that I would like to have a little bit more specificity about.
On top of it, there are other parks. Are we going to bear the cost out of capital improvement fund of those other parks?
Mm-mm.
Or is it just parcel 1 and 2?
I'd have to go back and look at parcel 3, because with the dog park being included, there was some
Right. How
condition
about-
that was attached to
how
that,
about
so I'd
the
have to go
square?
back and look.
I mean,
That's
That's all
design.
done already.
That's
That's FDP'd already.
That was
That's FDP'd.
done as part of FDP 1 Phase 2.
and who paid for it?
The town did not pay for that.
It's out of that will
TIF.
come out of TIF, yeah.
Well, that was, the distinction there was, that was a park parcel that the town and developer
Right.
agreed to plan.
But why does that matter?
Because these parcels, the town solely is we wanted control of the design of these. On that piece, we agreed to allow the developer to have participation in the
That was on
design
number
of it.
3.
That was number 4. The little.
Right.
Number 3 is up by the cemetery. Number 4 is kind of that smaller piece.
Deborah is
Yeah, yeah.
correct on number 3. We eventually ceded joint responsibility
Right,
on
yeah,
3 as
yeah,
well, so
yeah.
who pays for that?
That's,
Design.
I've got to go back and look at that.
That's an
condition that was-
80-20 rule.
Yeah, that's the 80-20 rule. And then parcel 5 is way up in the south, or down in the southeast corner.
Well, there is really
Um,
a parcel, you know,
So-
after ProStack and everybody said there's no way to put a
Right,
park
yeah,
up there.
yeah.
So it
I-
kind of got.
But I mean,
moved.
it's been identified
Yeah.
as a.
I frankly do not recall ever knowing that we were responsible for the FDP. Months ago, we finalized and gave our approval for the design concept of 1 and 2, parcel 1 and 2. And I actually thought that at that juncture, we turned the project over to Ranch, for Ranch to develop the FDPs on it, because we spent about a year post
Well,
parcel
we
1
had
and
this
2
discussion
approval.
as part of the development of the 2016 budget. There's a budget line in there specifically for this
Mhm.
design review, and we had the discussion with the board at that time. So my assumption was the board was comfortable with this, and that's why we moved forward to this point. So we can get additional information for you if you'd like.
But what did we do back in early part of 2015 when we had that intensive parcel 1 and 2 review process, and we tweaked it and refined it and whatnot, and we got it off to Ranch? What was that? What did we do there?
Well, it started with the committee going through that comprehensive plan, looking at all 5 pieces.
Mhm.
And then we narrowed it down to working on the 2 that we're talking about tonight. We came up with kind of a preliminary, a conceptual plan, and that's what we were going to use to take forward for these FDPs. Ranch Capital,
We were
or the
going to.
master developer has really no involvement other than for us to say, here you go, this is what we want, build it.
Just if you would text the date of that meeting in which we finalized that process, I just want to watch the meeting again.
Sure, yeah.
To refresh my memory on it.
At April 13th, 2015
Okay.
is what we have listed.
Yeah.
So, Matt, is there any significant downside to postponing voting on this for a couple of weeks?
No.
So I say we postpone and get the information.
Okay.
I just make one last comment that it was very, very important for the previous board to have control over Parks 1 and 2.
Yes.
And so all along, you know, even since I've been on the board, I've always understood that was a requirement that we as a town be heavily involved in the design of Parks 1 and 2.
No disagreement at all.
Yeah.
It's just
Absolutely.
payment.
Yeah.
Where's the money coming from?
And so because it's a little bit of a different animal, because we wanted to basically tell the developer what we wanted there, you know, and I think that those concepts that came from design concepts actually influenced the applicant, the developer, to change some things to improve it, like
Moving
the
the road
access,
is
the
one of them.
streets, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
moving the road is
perfect.
one of them, yeah.
So their recommendations, design concept, actually helped do that. And I think that then all that work is what I hear Patrick and you, Matt, say you're going to give to this next group as they go to design the final look and feel.
Yep.
I just want to make sure
I
we
think- yeah.
design the entire
Right.
park area along Cold Creek, both north and south sides. And then we include in there the design work for the Cold Creek corridor itself, which can come from open space funds. So, you know.
It's imperative we get this right, because the implications on 40,000 square feet of civic space, which means indoor community space in that thing, this is going to affect.
Well,
I
that's in
mean-
the 6 million.
Huh?
That's in the 6 million.
Well,
Out
who
of the
knows
6.
where it is? You know, I'm perplexed right now, so I would
Yeah.
appreciate delaying it to get more data.
That's fine.
Okay.
I agree.
All right, we're in agreement to
Table.
table
Table
this.
And does that,
item.
are you okay with the discussion? Do you need any,
Yeah, yeah.
ask us anything else? Okay.
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 Okay, thank you.
All right. Item number 16 is adoption of a resolution.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can I have clarification for the town attorney on what you would like her to prepare for you as part of this item?
I did send, just to go back for what trustee Pennington asked, I did send the memo that I prepared last year that lists all of the agreements with the dates and which section supersedes which section.
Right.
If you need more than that, let me know.
Right.
Because right now, I think that's what you asked for, but if you need more than
Right.
that,
I also need which prevail. In cost distribution, my understanding was cost-sharing agreement was intended to be the detail and
Yes,
prevails.
yes.
So I read that first. And if there is interpretational, interpretational differences, how it's expressed in cost-sharing agreement, to me, takes priority. So I just have to review it again.
Okay, perhaps, maybe what I should do is hammer down on that specific provision in a separate memo. I'm just throwing this out there, because that focused on all of the agreements and all of the obligations, but it sounds like we're really down to section 4.1 of the development agreement versus the civic space section in the CSA and how those two work together. So perhaps what I need to do is take that memo and refine it further to talk about.
As well as the breakdowns in Exhibit B.
Sure, okay,
Okay.
okay, I'll do that then. Thank you.
Yeah,
Because
to
what you
say
have-
what will be paid for, potentially paid for, out of the 6 million versus the 4 million.
Okay.
Yeah.
And neither.
Right.
Well,
Right.
you know, if design is not paid for out of there, then that's what she says. It's not paid for out of there.
But does that apply to what?
Yeah.
Design of the 40,000 square feet?
Well, I think so, but, you know, because it basically is amenities, but hey.
So, I mean, it has broader implications.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
And I think to be clear, you know, Patrick, we're not saying no, we're just saying we just get a little bit more,
We need to understand.
yeah, understanding here, and then we'll be ready to move forward. Okay?
And just, Patrick, you have enough clarification on kind of the additional detail that trustee Dozal is looking for?
I absolutely will have that added into the deliverables,
Okay.
definitely.
Thank you.
All right, anything else on item 15?
Do we need to make a motion or do anything other than just
No,
have
we're
this
just
discussion?
tabling it for-
Okay, it's tabled. All right, item number 16, adoption of a resolution approving a construction contract with ECI Site Construction Management Incorporated for construction of improvements to the El Dorado K-8 Park. This contract is for the construction of the new park near El Dorado K-8 School.
Thank you. Staff and design consultants have spent the last several months working on final construction drawings and technical specifications for the planned park adjacent to the school, based on the last design review of the board that occurred on November 9th, 2015. The construction documents represent a culmination of extensive community advisory committee and board participation that helped shape the character of the park. The public engagement process for this project, coordinated by our parks staff and the committee, began in 2011 and continued through 2015. 5 public meetings were hosted in various locations in town. Postcards were distributed to homes. Flyers, informational flyer boxes were placed throughout the community in an effort to gather feedback from citizens on potential park uses. The town also invested in an online communication forum called Engage Superior to receive input from citizens not able to attend one of the public meetings. The item for tonight's agenda is for the board's consideration of construction contract with ECI Site Construction Management for the new park construction at the school park parcel. The project was put out to bid this year. Formal proposals were received. We had 6 completed bids submitted, all relatively in the same kind of ballpark for budget. ECI Site Construction Management provided the lowest and most responsive total bid. The firm has completed several park development projects in the region and provided excellent references. Some of these park projects were included in your memo as an example: Wellington Community Park for the town of Wellington, Broomfield County Commons Park Improvement, the Highline Canal Triple Creek Trail, and the Margaret Carpenter Regional Park in Thornton. Based upon the bids received, quality of references, staff is recommending the project be awarded to ECI. If approved, construction will begin in February and hopefully substantially completed in September, October timeframe. Budget has allocated in two funds, the General Capital Fund and the Conservation Trust Fund, for a total project budget of $3,029,000. It's projected that ongoing maintenance expenses for the park are identified to be an estimated $72,500 annually, with an additional $20,000 budgeted for irrigation. These have been included, or will be included, in the 2017 budget. The basketball deep duct, or alternate pricing, as directed by the board, was sent out to all these firms. ECI's alternate pricing for the basketball cart was $55,938.60. ECI's bid price was $2,307,000. If the board were to decide to not move forward with the basketball court, the total price of the contract would be $2,251,223.05. So the staff just needs direction with regard to the basketball court prior to approval.
Okay, thank you. Board questions, discussions? Mayor Pro Tem Williams.
So I have a number of questions. First of all, I wanted to say that I'm really happy that it's come under budget, and that maybe we can take advantage of that. First of all, I'd like Rita's idea on making the basketball court a multi-purpose. And I'm wondering if it's possible, if there's such a thing as a retractable net that can be pulled across by the user to play badminton or pickleball or whatever. Can that be incorporated into it?
I'm going to ask Patrick to come up, and I don't know. That's a good question.
Isn't it a neat idea? It is, according to Rita.
Yeah, I'm not familiar off the top of my head, but we'll be absolutely willing to take a look. I'm sure there's something out there that would allow us to bring something, across the court and make it more multi-use. I'm sure there's something out there, and we can research that.
Well, I think we talked about it last time too, just even to have metal sleeves in the ground, so if people wanted to bring their own net,
Or
they
it could be
could, too.
retractable.
Yeah, but your idea, it's almost like, I could see that, where you
Yeah.
could pull something out, but probably break, and then it'd be another $72,000 maintenance cost every year for it. But,
But
your own net.
it's something
bring your
to-
own net.
Yeah.
So with the lower,
BYN.
coming in under budget pricing, which is good news, I think a number of people probably have ideas of things that could be done to bring that number up and further amenitize, give further amenities to the park. So I guess the question is, what's the most efficient way to do that? I think the, with the idea of moving things forward, but not creating a whole new set of issues of design and so on. Is that possible? How do we accomplish that?
Can I ask something? If something comes out of under budget, do we have to spend what we had allotted before? I mean, is that mandatory? We have to spend the money?
And I guess, my
So-
recommendation to the board is, I understand the kind of thought that you would have to maybe start adding things in. I think you start to delay the project at that
Right, that's my
time,
whole point.
because the committee's going to want to weigh in on it. I would imagine we would need to go back to the committee, and that would need to come back to the board, and it could change the, certain aspects of the park design, so my suggestion would be to approve the project, get it built. There's always potential for some additional costs that are unforeseen, so it's good to have something under budget, and then come back. We can always add stuff to the park in future years.
That's right.
as
And
well.
is it something that we can add next month? I mean, we've approved this, it goes forward, and then another comes in that we have a few more amenities that we can put onto it, and we add that to it, like a change order. That's what it's called.
Ooh.
I don't know. Okay, so
Then we'll be over the $3 million budget.
I know that's
quickly.
only in probably Public Works construction, but hey.
I mean, I have to go back to what
You
Rita
get my
said.
drift, right?
Yeah.
Rita said at the planning commission meeting that we had before this, always think what's in the best interest of this town. To delay this park that we've spent so many years going after, any 1/2 hour beyond tonight is, to me, is out of the question. We have debated this over and over and over again. I think we need to make a decision. Tonight is the time to make the decision. If 6 months from now, where we built it and then we say, hey, we still have some extra money, maybe that we can add this, that's a whole different story. But let's not delay this just because we came under budget. Okay? Just
I got to weigh in.
I'm just saying.
I want to weigh in. One, agreed totally with the last part of your thing, decision tonight. No interest in delaying it. However, this whole park project, from the get-go, has been so dictated by what many of us thought was this outrageous cost estimate. Start out at $4 million, and some of us could never figure out what the heck we were getting for $4 million, nor $3 million, et cetera, et cetera. So this, more than any other project I've ever been party to for the town, has taken severe cuts in amenitization, is that a word? Amenities. And to come in, take the 2.3, add a couple of hundred for design on it, you're up to 2.5. You're going to have some overruns, but you may have a GOCO grant. So, we do have $250,000 to $300,000 potentially to amenitize this park. The biggest complaint from the people who were dedicated to this 5-6 year process is, God, we're ending up with nothing. And to me, if tonight, with both of our ProStac chairmen, the current and the former here, and Patrick, you sat in on every one of those meetings, can identify for us what the next priorities in order would be, we can, and I think we can rely on that. And if we can actually approve the project tonight, with the caveat that the design firm can proceed with that information and the potential additional amenities without much ado, then I say do them. If it takes a reworking of, the number of pages I have here, that's a whole different story. But I want to hear what those committee chairs say as to what would be next, and next after that, and next after that. And if it really isn't much, I'd like to put those in the park at this point in time, simply to amenitize it sort of at an acceptable level. It's not going to over-amenitize it. So at the appropriate time, I would like to hear from the chairman and former chairman of ProStac to speak as to what those next amenities and priority would be, based on all that public input that was received. And I like your idea of simply adding a couple of sleeves, which isn't going to...
That's not going to break the bank.
Right.
No.
Those things that can be done without much ado, that the committee chairs feel, can attest to, I'm interested in hearing and possibly moving on.
Okay.
Can I, I'm sorry?
Mayor Pro Tem Williams had kind of started your comments, but then, but then we kind of
They're doing nicely. Keep going.
Okay.
So I have just about 6 or 7 comments that I couldn't quite get from when I was looking at it on my. One is that, are there tables by the volleyball courts? What I find is that the volleyball court here in Purple Park, the tables there are used extensively because people will come there with their picnics. So we need to include in the plan someplace to put tables. I think there's a couple of benches around there, but definitely picnic tables so that that they can, not just one little 6-foot table, because I've seen that where, a couple dozen or 3 dozen people show up to use the sand volleyball. So that's one thing, tables by the volleyball pit. Is there electricity in the pavilion and the gazebo? You know, that would be the other thing. You need to do that now. You can't wait and try to put that in later. So,
Electricity is in at both locations.
okay, excellent. And then path lighting. Will there be path lighting on the path that goes around? When I say path lighting, I mean like through Purple Park. There's.
The bollards?
Yeah, it's really wonderful to be able to walk through Purple Park at 5:30 or 6 o'clock at this time of year and have that with your dog or with your children or whatever, or just by yourself, like me, and to be able to actually find the path because of the light that goes, just the little path lights. I don't mean great big lights up in the sky. I just mean lighting the path as it goes around there. And if we were going to do that later, we'd have to have electricity in for that too. So I would ask the question, do we want to have path lighting? And if we don't want to put it in now, do we want to make ability to have some kind of electricity there somehow to be able to do that? I know there aren't any swings anywhere there, and I don't know if we ever wanted to put any swings in, or do we have a place to put them? Again, I don't expect an answer so much as just, you know, swings might be good, you know, just a traditional, more of a traditional little swing climbing area. Do we want to plan for a spot for that, or do we want to consider that now? Swings, and then I see all those in Purple Park again, all the kids going across that, what do you call that when you know, go like the jungle, you climb across, huh? Well, a zip line. Oh, no, it's a ladder. It's a ladder thing that you,
Monkey bars.
yeah, long ladder, you just go,
Monkey
they're on that constantly, and that's a good one. And then the other thing that I looked at was the connection path to the school. It seems like it's kind of long, and then it just shoots up at a 90-degree angle to the park. I thought we had talked more about it kind of coming across, but maybe you can't do it because of the topography.
We did have to move that trail for the topography and the
Okay.
anticipated
Enough said.
flows. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute. That's not being included in here. This is actually for the future, right? That,
No,
That one is.
it's there,
It's in there.
it's there.
okay.
It's dashed because the dash is on the school property, and it goes up then. The dash is theirs, but when it goes up at a 90-degree angle,
So
that's where
once it
we're.
gets to the school property, then there is no trail from there.
Yeah, there's a
It's
trail there.
school trail.
It's a
Okay.
school trail. It's not our trail.
I think I read on here somewhere that it just said that that trail was for, future planning, or it wasn't going to be part of this.
This project does provide a connection point right up to that school
Okay.
property
All
from
right.
the parking lot.
Right.
Okay.
And then my last comment is that I know we talked a lot the last time, and there's been a lot of comments about the basketball court versus a basketball court, period, in or out. And I was wondering if it would make sense to think about just reversing the sand volleyball and the basketball court. Just flip-flop them, so that you're moving the basketball court further away from the landscaped area down from the residential. That might be an option. I don't know if that would be helpful to residents to actually move it where the sand volleyball is, which would be northeast up, from that. And, sand volleyball, put it where the basketball court is now planned for. That's one. I don't know if people would view that as helpful or not. It would move it further away from the residents by doing that, just flipping them, reversing them.
And
Well,
I-
it moves it farther from one and closer to another. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
kind of.
Closer
it's-
I
to
don't
where,
think you're
though? Closer to
accomplishing
what?
anything.
Closer to the house on Torrey's Peak.
Yeah,
Closer
it's-
to
Oh,
Kevin's
but no,
house.
they're
I
quite a
think-
ways, and there's a street away from
You know,
there too. It's a long ways from there.
I think all of these ideas are great, but I think if we had 10 more meetings, we'd have, 10 more ideas for benches, and we, all these kind of, I think all of these things could be incorporated into the future, but what I heard from the town manager is that we do need to be conscious of.
I agree with that, but
do
I
we-
also don't think
Tables-
the things
tables
that,
don't
a
take
table
anything.
doesn't cost anything.
I
And,
know.
and tables are very useful. Now's be the time to say, put 2 more tables in there.
Okay.
And if you're gonna do electricity, you might as well do it now when you're digging it
But
up.
that's not, that's back to the drawing board. cannot
I don't know
decide.
that it's back to the
It's-
drawing board. I disagree with that.
Electricity might be back to the drawing board.
Along the path.
I think it
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
So,
Okay, additional
did you answer her
questions?
question right now? There is no low-level lighting?
There is no level lighting included in this park, and we would need to kind of go back to the drawing board with the electrical engineer to
Yeah.
design that into the project.
I would say that's major.
Yes.
Table, minor.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
let's,
Two posts with a retractable minor.
probably
Some
somewhat
picnic tables
minor.
by the sand volleyball, totally.
Right,
It's a go.
right. Swings.
Flipping the basketball court and the volleyball court, I don't think really gains you anything.
Yeah, it's-
I don't know. I would just ask the residents if that would be.
Another option
amenable
there,
to 'em.
instead of flipping them, and I would like just to have the chairman comment as you, Patrick. We have landscaping around that. To increase the effectiveness of the landscaping, could we actually, within the context of landscaping, berm on that west edge of the basketball court, thereby creating a little bit of a sound barrier as well? So to me, that is a very
Yep.
non-impactful type to berm there. I have to say, I've spent a lot of time out at El Dorado K-8 since the last meeting. And I was out there on Saturday behind the house in question, and 3 people were playing basketball on the basketball court. And the first thing I want to dispel is that those El Dorado K-8 basketball courts are in any way, shape, or form similar to this basketball court. They're basically recess and gym half courts to have as many people shoot as many balls as possible, and they're all at elementary school height. No self-respecting teenager in high school is going to be caught dead there. And the quality of the markings, the quality of the concrete, et cetera, it is not at all what this court will be. And the courts of this type, and if it be our own founders, I was just in Fort Lauderdale, and you can't compare them. So I would like to dispel that comparison. The other thing that was most insightful was the bouncing noise of those basketballs. These were 2 small kids and a mom shooting, and you could hear every thump of that basketball because of how it resonated off the brick building. And my husband made the comment that, and he walked off 120 feet, which I think is conservative in terms of the distance. And he said, you know, there's nothing going to be an echo chamber over here to bounce that back to these houses along Opal Lane. So one, it's a sound that they're used to because the courts are there now and recess is there now, and I'm right there. I bought into that neighborhood knowing full well I've got screaming kids around me and cars around me, et cetera, et cetera. But it was very telling when there were just 3 people playing there, and the current school noise, you can hear the basketballs bounce. And I do agree that without the brick wall to cause it to resonate, what's the word, reverberate, that this is not going to be any louder, certainly, and possibly quieter, especially if we think ahead. And when we grade, we create a berm, and thereby help it even be more quiet.
It was probably a little bit difficult to see on the documents that you have, but those berms have absolutely been designed in.
Oh, good.
Even better, being able to use some of the
Right next to the court?
Right next to the court. Even better, using some of the excavated material on site that would need to be removed for the restroom. We've also really worked hard with design concepts to come up with an aggressive but really good-looking planting plan, in my opinion, that will immediately begin to deflect the noise up as opposed to shooting it back towards the west, using the berms, using ornamental grasses, slowly transitioning into taller tree species. So those have been designed in.
Great. If I can continue one thing Rita brought up, this walk, is there a way to show that walk connection on, we can call out the packet on the screen, right? I was very surprised that it really comes off the sidewalk, that comes off Opal Lane, that very short sidewalk straight down, and it does not angle off that loop. To me, that was totally different than what we've worked with this whole time. Am I just remembering incorrectly?
We did have to, once we were out there doing the survey work and worked with looking at the drainage plan, it really had to be angled off and kind of become a straight line towards the west that shot over. If not, we'd be dealing with topography and running it through what's the drainage canal.
Is there any chance those kids are going to make social trails, or are social trails just impossible to make?
I think social trails will exist and kids will make them.
So it's not so difficult that they won't walk it, the
No.
diagonal?
No, I think some of the bigger issue is if there were to be an event and water were to convey in that area, that wouldn't be a safe place to have a trail.
Yeah, but I asked for big printouts, so I've got them, but I'm not sure everybody else has that.
Okay. Trustee Kukrows.
So just a clarification to Kendra and to you, Matt. What we're voting for tonight, is this with or without the basketball court?
We're waiting to hear from you.
We need to make that
No,
decision.
but I mean, the way that it's written, the resolution right now, if we were to
It's
read it and
with.
approve
It's
it,
with.
it's with.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I needed to
Yeah.
know.
While you're drawing that up, can someone define for me what a sediment control log will look like around the gazebo? Will it actually be a log, or is it a wire thing filled with rock or something? Because I'm concerned about sediment control logs. You're sitting there looking out and you go, what? When are you going to finish
We
this?
have representatives from ECI this evening, and I may actually invite those guys to come up. They could probably answer that one a little more eloquently than I can.
There were a couple of different areas where it was talking about maintaining drainage or, keeping
You guys, if
stuff
you can,
from
start with your names and.
Travis from ECI Site Construction Management.
Thank you.
Ted Johnson with ECI. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So I believe the sediment control logs that you're referring to are just for initial erosion control.
Oh,
They'll,
initial?
those things.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Yeah, and they're
They
just
won't
basically
stay there.
straw logs that'll just temporarily be there.
Okay. That's good. Because I was thinking I'd be looking out on them.
And I might add, we've probably built 75, 80 parks here in the last 10 to 12 years. But to kind of some of your point, as we've been, looking at the schedule on getting this project going, if this does go forward, I think we have, a few 3-4 weeks, we're going to get a lot of things in order with, some of our key subcontractors. But we've worked on the front. There's certain elements. We've worked on a lot of kind of modified CMGC or design build contracts where we can kind of accommodate some potential adds later on that don't impact the critical path schedule, and whether that's conduits for lighting or surface amenities, those can all be worked out in the meantime, because we will have a fair amount of civil work up front. So I'm just throwing that out there. We're willing to kind of help work with Pat if needed, and if we want to go ahead with what's designed here, it's a great plan. That works too. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Okay,
So-
That's
good
good,
to hear.
helpful.
Thanks.
That's helpful, thank you.
That is very helpful. What exactly do you have in mind? What?
Well, I guess I just want to say, we heard a few different things with, the potential wish lists or items that may have
Right.
been, deferred. Really, any surface, I guess, the big things we need to know here sooner than later in the next couple of months is anything that has to do with really grading your utilities. A lot of times we easily add conduits for electrical. I don't think that's that big a deal. But obviously something would have to be drawn up and priced and approved. There's some time. There's not a lot, but if there's some key items that the board and the committees were looking at, I mean, if you guys had a list, we could probably quickly tell you, yeah, that's doable, that, and maybe give you a time frame.
Can I ask?
Sure can.
Whether something's doable? You know, the fitness stations that you see around that are just, you know, outdoor fitness stations that just go around a path.
Uh-huh.
Is that something doable?
I don't see why not. Yeah, I mean, those are all, for the most part, it'd be probably the tail end of the project. Those things would get wrapped up late summer, early fall. So same thing with table surface features. You know, those are easy. Even walls, any of that kind of stuff is, you know, there's a little, I don't want to make it complicated here. I'm just saying there's a little bit of a window. So if there were some items, you know, it kind of sounded like you guys were pretty interested in. What I'm saying is we're willing to kind of work, and we'll give you a straight up assessment.
What would be a deal killer? What would cause a whole new design? What kind of feature would do that?
I guess if you told me you wanted a maintenance facility in here.
Or a swimming pool or something.
Yeah, or swimming pool. But I think for the most part, you know, I think
I'm not suggesting it.
we're you know, really looking at getting a lot of things in order, and you know, kind of begin mobilizing. It'll probably be mid to late March to get things going with some of our subcontracts. We want to have a pretty good plan going forward. Have all our erosion control inspection permits, all the other kind of stuff in order. So what I'm saying is there's a little time there, and we're willing to, you know, give some opinions. Or again, we've done tons of these things, so we'll throw that out there.
Thank you.
While you're both up there, is there any bugaboo in this plan that seems misdesigned to you or ill-advised?
No, nothing that really stood out as far as going through the bid process with it, and nothing that stood out to any of our subcontractors as far as design. So, yeah, everything seems fairly straightforward at the point right now. It's kind of always, once you get into the site and start opening everything up, is when you really find that out. But
I would say, you know, we've done a number of design concepts jobs in the past, pretty familiar with what their expectations are. It's, to answer your question, no, there's nothing that seems real out of the ordinary. You know, you're always dealing with soil conditions that could be somewhat of an unknown. I think we tried to cover a lot of those things, just getting those clarified. So I don't really foresee much even on that front either. So it seems pretty straightforward.
Will this be irrigated from our potable water or from reuse water?
Reuse. Patrick's telling me reuse.
Okay.
Great.
Yes.
I appreciate, you know, the desire to add things now if we can. And my only reservation is it took us 4 years to get to this point, and as we add things in, from experience in the past, it's not always as easy to agree on certain things as we start to get input from different committees and board and that. So that's my only reservation.
To reiterate, I'm not intending to reinvent the process. I'm intending to benefit from the process. And if there have been identified those features that are next in line, we know what we got rid of from 4 million down to 3 million. We got rid of some pretty simple but useful features. And for example, a swing set. Hardly rocket science, right? It's just where do you want that swing set to be placed, right? So I again want to hear from the committee chairman when it comes to public comment time about, are there things that have been identified that are next in the queue?
Like a priority list.
On the priority list. We're not making up a new priority list.
No.
We're reporting on the priority list that has already been developed.
And I want to be clear, we're not changing any of the design. The design is what it is.
Yeah,
it's
so-
just placing something right on top.
Right.
Or adding a table, things like that, or a bench isn't
But the table's not a deal breaker?
But
Kidding.
Depends how big it is.
Patrick, could you take
It
the
has to
light
be movable
to
and
and
have
show
to
that
flip it.
that connection?
Ping pong.
This is what I want to point out, how far it is away from the edge of the loop. So people drop their kids off where?
Yeah, the drop-off area would be on this side here.
And we're expecting those kids to walk all the way to the west and then
Correct.
cross down.
Yeah.
What do you think they're going to do?
I think with it being younger kids and some coordination with the school, I feel confident that we could get kids. I think older kids are going to cut across
Yeah, it's
it
not that far.
regardless.
It's just we're dealing with kids.
It's kind of deep there, though, isn't it?
There's a pretty steep drop in there.
okay.
I think if it's wet or if it's muddy,
They're not gonna do it.
hopefully you'll have the majority come up here. If you remember, originally the trail did kind of wander, and it just when it actually came down to making that trail reality, it just was not possible with the topography that's out there.
So at the edge of that connection, what is there? Is that the playground?
No, that's a path that's already existing.
Uh,
Isn't there a sidewalk there
A
already?
social, I
No
I
sidewalk.
can't
Oh,
recall.
there's
It's on
no-
the school side, and I'm remembering there's maybe a social trail that exists on the school site.
Is that the fence area where the kids jump over the fence?
I don't know. I'd have to look.
Is that a chain link
It is.
fence that it
That's exactly
intersects,
what
though?
it is.
Yeah. So the question is, that's what I think Deborah was referring to when it says here, optional connection walk by
Yeah.
BVSD. Right now, that's a social trail.
That's exactly what I
Right.
read. I knew I read something that.
Okay.
Well, I think some conversation needs to be had with the school then,
BBSD.
with BBSD, and say,
Come on.
how are you going to connect to our
Right, right.
path?
And if you, going back a couple meetings, we did have that trail, and at the board's request, that trail was removed.
Do we want to go to public comment and then
Let's-
have the
yeah, let's
rest
do.
of ours? Okay.
We do. Okay, public comment. Just give a wave and I'll wave you.
Peter Bottomley, ProStack Chair. Some of this might be somewhat redundant at this point, but ProStack did meet last Wednesday and discuss this, and so I just wanted to make a general comment. Based on the actions of the board's last meeting, we wanted to remind the trustees that the original three-phase conceptual master plan for this park, which was developed based on input from public meetings, included the following active amenities: scrambling boulders, embankment slide, basketball court, splash pad, sand volleyball court, outdoor fitness equipment, single track bike trail, neck climber, 2 tennis courts, bocce ball pits, and sledding hill. There was also an amphitheater, community garden, and outdoor classroom in the original plan. Due to budget constraints, further public input, and board direction, the amenities in the park were greatly reduced and a single-phase plan was adopted. The final plan approved by the board just a few months ago included only 3 active amenities: basketball court, sand volleyball court, and net climber. Now, based on the public comments of a handful of neighboring residents, several of whom were involved in the earlier public process, the board is potentially removing the basketball court and reducing the number of active amenities to only 2. It's ProStack's stance that the board should not be considering changes to the final plan after it was put out to bid, and if you are, it should be in a public forum where the general public is invited to comment and not just a small group of residents rallied behind a single goal. All sides need to be heard. Remember that this park is supposed to serve the entire neighborhood south of Colton Road, over 1,200 residences, and not just those immediately bordering the park. Finally, I want to remind the board that there were no fewer than 3 public meetings specifically held in this park before conceptual plans were developed. There were also countless ProStack and board meetings, both of which are noticed and open to the public, where the park design was thoroughly discussed. If you were to remove the basketball court at this point, I feel that it would be an injustice to the public process that's been done to date. So that was my prepared comment. I'm willing to address anything else that you might have.
So, based on your role as chairman of this committee, if you were to add back in some of those amenities on the, I guess from that list you read, in what order would you add them and which amenities?
I echo what staff is saying here, that at this point any major delays or any major additions to the park would delay it, and that would, again, I feel would be the wrong maneuver. But if you were looking at adding smaller amenities, I would say that those would have included the outdoor fitness equipment, and then some of the smaller play items, the scrambling boulders, the bocce pits. And then even though the original three-phase design never had a proper playground, and we didn't really discuss traditional playground amenities, hearing what Trustee Dozell, several of you have said, items like swings or monkey bars, you really can't go wrong with those type of amenities. If they were added, they're certainly going to get used.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Jim Payne, Superior resident, former chair of ProStack when most of this planning work was done. And I just wanted to say that I would recommend that you go back and look at the final phase plan. Some of the, I essentially agree with Peter, but he was going through items that we had looked at. But we did come down to a final plan that essentially uses this design and landscape. Those items were carefully reviewed by ProStack and the public and presented to the public, and they should fit. Whether they're done now or done in future years, they should fit into this plan. And I would, and for example, you mentioned the fitness stations. Well, there's quite a lot of discussion about that, and quite frankly, the fitness stations have come up with Archery Park, Founders Park, and now this park, and we never seem to get the traction. They don't tend to get the overwhelming support that you might think. And that's happened so far 3 times now. But what we did arrive at, and this was with Design Concepts help, their feeling is that today it's the fitness cycles, if you will, the fitness stations really haven't worked as well as fitness clusters. And so my point is not to advocate for that. I'm just saying we went through all of this. It's there in the notes. It's there in the Phase 3 plan of this. And we essentially, at the board's direction for financial purposes, which I concurred with, backed all of that out. So it should be a matter of having ProStack and the board look at that plan. 2 years later, whatever it is, there may be a couple of tweaks, but it's not going to be too different. And they will fit in this plan, and all of the work has been done and the thought has been there. So I think however much you do choose to look at adding, and some of them are fairly simple and could be added in without any major reconstruction of the plan. So that's what I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So you mentioned fitness clusters. Do you have a recollection of the prioritization of those? I do want to see the Cadillac plan up there, just for grins, if nothing else. So Patrick, can you call that up, the Phase 3 plan? So look at what we have, and it's instructive, I think, to see what we got rid of. So Jim, if you were to put amenities back at this stage, does anything come to mind? Speaking for the committee, not just yourself.
Speaking, well, I don't really can't speak for the committee, and I think.
But his recollections of the committee.
I mean, I don't think of
you
the
were
final
wanting to
items.
share.
It was at different parts, different times in the debate over that. There were some priorities given, but I think the priorities should be very easily addressed by the current ProStack committee, which is a good group, and they have a good understanding for this, and some of them live around in that area south of Colton, and there's a good mix of people. So I think that's a fairly easy task.
So Patrick, would you mind, or Jim, one of you, walk us through what these amenities were? I can't see I have the wrong glasses on.
Yep, so going back, this was original full phase, as of April 2014. Some of the key elements, you're seeing community gardens down in here, kind of plantings, another large pavilion, court spaces, large covered pavilion with amphitheater-style seating, pavilion, a couple more pavilion areas here. The net climber moved up a little bit higher. We had the swings on the overlook, the fitness cluster, some of the mountain bike single track trail, and this was just kind of that fully loaded version, and it kind of whittled its way backwards, kind of from this master plan. And this, I'm sorry, yes, and the sledding hill. This detention pond area here, it was taken out of the project to where the edge of the road is now the edge of the project area. And I believe the rationale with that is that really this didn't, it's always going to be a sledding hill. It was going to kind of serve that purpose anyway, so maybe not have it be part of the project, not do a lot to put trails or amenities down in there.
So in looking at that, I'm looking at the connection off the loop to the school.
Mm-hmm.
That was totally different from where it is now.
Mm-hmm.
That, would you put the hand where
Yep.
I'm talking about? No, the other one to the right. Was that actually a connection?
That was, at the time, these were, I believe, crusher fine paths. And again, this was pre-survey, so just looking at it on a flat piece of paper without understanding the topography.
Okay. And then my eye goes to how close that this was the plan that when we had a room full of people got applause and that basketball court, look where it's situated.
Correct.
So that, was pretty darn close.
I have to go back to what Matt said, though. I think we're getting this is expanding way beyond. I mean, it's nice to have that visual, but we're here to vote on something that we've already agreed upon. The decision is basketball court, yes or no. So I just feel like this is just morphing into something different. So
Well,
Let's keep on with public comment, too. if you-
well, I mean, we
if
can,
you're-
but I'm just saying, let's just contain this somewhat.
Yep. Okay, additional public comment.
Not tonight.
Evening, Kevin Ryan on Torrey's Peak, right across from the entrance. So we've been here almost 11 years, and the first thing we noticed when we looked at the house, and we looked at a lot of houses in Rock Creek, was the space across the street, the empty field across the street, as well as the playground behind our house, which is known as Red Park, which most people don't even know it's Red Park. And it feels like it's our personal playground. We're very fortunate to have that. We're very fortunate to have this open space, what was open space, what will now be a park across the street as well. So when we did our research and we read the intergovernmental agreement, we knew that this parcel could have been any number of things. It could have been used by the school. It could have been a large community center. It could have gone a lot of different directions. So we've heard a lot of rumors over the years. We heard rumors about a potential new high school. We saw the proposal 6 or 7 years ago for the land swap that would have had some residential development in there. Thankfully, we're talking about a park for 1,300 homes south of Colton that we have all long deserved. So in 2011, ProStack initiated this process to engage the community for the potential park or civic use. Hundreds of people participated in that process over the past 5 years. The construction proposal today represents the final stage of approval before we break ground next month. So I want to pause on that as well. We're breaking ground next. That's a heck of an accomplishment. 15 months ago, I stood up here, and the best case that you were considering forecasting based on budget and funds availability was completion in 2019. We're now looking at completion at the end of this summer. I heard August. I saw in the proposal September, so I have my hopes out for August or September, not necessarily October. So, like most people, I would have loved to have seen some of these other amenities that were included in that three-phase proposal. Community gardens, amphitheater, splash pad like we have on Pearl Street. But faced with that, the reality of the budget, the proposal we have in front of us that's being considered today is one that ProStack, the community, the board, and the neighborhood should be proud of. I was really discouraged a couple weeks ago at that meeting when it felt like there were folks, and my comments may have come across like that as well, that this was not a process that engaged the community, that was transparent. I think the points tonight are excellent, that in the future, we can consider adding additional amenities as those funds become available or the park is being built. So now we have the option for the basketball court. So I spent some time looking at the schematics and watching a few basketball games or even listening to basketball games over the last couple weeks. My house is as close to any house to the volleyball and basketball courts, and I don't doubt that I will hear kids playing and bouncing balls. I also hear, because we're so close to El Dorado, the morning bell, I hear the announcements, and I even hear my kids sometimes over the other kids yelling on those playgrounds. As a community, we're all very fortunate to live this close to so many parks, playgrounds, and open space. So I would encourage my neighbors who think the noise is a nuisance, consider that as an opportunity to go outside and play. The voice of hundreds that participated in the community engagement process should not be muted by the few of us that live in the closest proximity. So thank you for the engagement of the community throughout the process, the transparency, and most importantly, the accelerated funding that will have this park completed at the end of the summer. So my recommendation, accept the proposal as is with the basketball and volleyball courts unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment? Any additional public comment? Okay. Seeing none, back to discussion.
It's very interesting. One, Kevin, that was really well thought out, and I appreciate that. If we put this plan as we see it in place in front of us, will there be some things that we cannot change that we may in the future wish we'd never done, given the fact that several $100,000 more are available? What I bring to mind is at one iteration, and I think it's the Cadillac plan, the ground cover around the courts and sand volleyball pit I thought was different from what it is proposed to be now. Am I correct or incorrect? What was the ground cover supposed to be, planned to be at the outset, and has it changed?
What the plan is here is colored concrete.
No, I meant the grass.
And here,
can I walk on it barefoot like I can the grass lawn, or is that going to be thatchy and thorny and natural like we're native, like we're used to south of Colton?
I think this area over here will probably be a little more reflective of what you currently see on the south side of Colton Road. It'll be green grass. Will it be playing surface kind of grass? No, it'll be a little bit more of a native grass, but by no means will it be.
But what about the court, around the courts? What's
around
that
the courts?
intended to be?
You'll have the pretty decent concrete, stamped concrete runout.
No, I meant what ground cover on the land surrounding?
Yeah, this is native grass like you would see on the Colton.
So if I
Road.
come off the sand volleyball court, you can tell I've never played. I assume you play like they do in the Olympics, barefooted.
Right.
So if I step off that sand volleyball court onto the ground, is it going to be comfortable? In other words, should we use, that is something that if we do it one way now and wish we would have done it the way we would have liked, isn't easily changed. So should that be grass rather than native?
Yeah, I really think it comes down to the matter of preference. We will have to do some modifications to irrigation if we wanted to kind of change this in here. This is a completely different irrigated sod.
Right.
The soil underneath it a little bit different. The base under this will be different than the native over here, so it would be a change.
But
I don't know.
Can I walk on it is the question.
I think you could walk on it.
Barefooted.
Yeah, I
And
would say you could.
What is surrounding the sand volleyball court in Purple Park? Because that's manicured grass, right?
We have edger and then it goes to grass, correct?
Right. So I'm just trying to take
Mhm.
you down a path that it does make sense to me, what we've heard from the chairman and Kevin, that frankly, send it back to ProStack about, to answer the question, what additional amenities in what order would you add? So I don't mind taking time to have them answer that question. I do mind losing several $100,000 of 2016 budget money and several years in creating some baseline amenities for this park, because it's true, we've got right now 3 items, right? It's under amenitized now. So, but I don't mind buying some time that the two of you said we could buy, sending it back to ProStack, have them in a quick fashion, not in 2 years, but in a month, send back to us how they would proceed in terms of the amenitization. So I can see that. But what I'm trying to take us down a path, if when we approve this tonight, we have cut back too far and we should restore something now because it'll be very expensive or impossible to do later, we need to know that. So how would you answer that?
One thing for sure I want to point out is for this park, we were able to accelerate the construction by borrowing funds from the open space fund. So we don't currently have enough money in the general fund CIP to
That's
fund it.
true.
So we're borrowing money. The money's not being used in open space right now. I mean, there's a significant balance in there to allow us to do that. But that's something to keep into consideration as well. So if it's under budget, that's a positive thing because we'll borrow less from the open space fund. The second thing is there is a potential for delays if we start going back and adding amenities, because there'll be committee input to add, then there'll be design. We'll have to go back to our design firm and have that work done. They'll have to work with the general contractor. We'll have to come up with pricing. So just
Okay.
keep that in mind as well.
Okay.
If we want to be done by September, I suggest.
But can I have an answer to my question? Are there things we've done in cutting back that we
That are
will
not-
regret?
They're irreversible.
I would
Very
say,
reversible.
in terms of the surface amenities, there are probably a handful of surface amenities that have always continued to come up that I think were cut. Off of the top of my head, the fitness cluster. In terms of converting native grass to more sodded grass, I think that those are things that with some quick irrigation and some watering schedules and overseeding can be done relatively easy. I would say that
In the future.
In the future, I would say the things, the more tangible amenities that we ended up cutting kind of towards the end of last year. The fitness cluster, I think, was one that we heard about right away from residents, and the more kid-oriented play features, the climbing boulders, as Peter mentioned, those are the items to me that would be on the list. And I looked through the list that I went over with ProStack several months back, and those were kind of the top tier items that had always been discussed. But converting the sod, I think we could do a good job managing the native to make sure it's aesthetic and comfortable. And if it needed to be changed later, we've been successful doing that. The east end of Founders Park at one point was really this kind of native, I won't say mess, but it was pretty tough material. And over the years of Matt Rarick and our staff working with it, with Vargas, we've been able to turn that into a pretty nice surface. So it's doable.
The question is the timing of the fitness cluster. Finish that out. When would you add it?
I think as it was brought up earlier, those are things I think can be added on the surface as part of this process
Okay.
as we get towards the end of the project itself.
So if we went back to ProStack right now and asked them to assist with that, if they get back, it could potentially be added by, let's say, the September opening of this park.
Yeah, I believe so, and it sounds like but as long as we have maybe a pretty firm grasp by March is kind of the deadline that I think I was understanding from these guys.
And then I do have just two quick questions. I couldn't see in the drawings, and I had to flip through them pretty fast. Where are the wildflowers that we talked about? Where are they going to be added?
These are all at the entry area.
Mm-hmm.
We'll upgrade the entry area here, and then you'll all through here, intermingled in here, are going to be the planting beds and the wildflower beds. So it kind of creates this aesthetic as you're coming up the road, entering the park, and then really as you're kind of at the parking loop, they'll be integrated
Anything
in
on
here.
the Torrey's Peak side?
You know, I would have to go back and look at the specific planting plan, and I can't recall off the top of my head I believe we had some planting at this entryway.
I
up
hope
here.
some magically appear, if I can put my plug in. And then I do want everybody to be concerned about the intersection of the loop at Indiana, because we talked about a right turn only, but it was approved both left and right, correct? And so cars are going to be leaving as kids, or doing their skateboards, their bikes, running, talking to their friends right there. And so I do think that's a huge opportunity to work with El Dorado K-8 parents to get crossing guard there and get some active monitoring, or our extra public safety officer, at the close of school, at the beginning of school, because I can see that as a potential unsafe area, at least to begin with. That's all.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Williams, do you have something?
I was just going to say that I'd like to see us approve what we've got here, and then what I call a change order later, when it's appropriate and doable, to add an amenity or two.
Fully agree.
Okay. Trustee Hansen.
Yeah, I would lean towards just approving what we have here. If we have an opportunity of adding one or two top priorities and it's not going to delay the project at all, then maybe we consider that. But I really like Trustee Dozel's idea about having some kind of lighting around, if it's in bollards around the park, around the trails maybe. I like that idea. And if it's not too much of a problem to have, when you said conduit, that's what you're referring to, right? It was electrical for lighting around.
Yeah, primarily, yeah, if we could install really anything underneath the paths or.
I don't know. I don't think we ever discussed that. I don't think it ever came up in any of the community, the public meetings, but I think that's something that should be added there from a safety perspective. So I would consider that above any other amenities, adding amenities up front.
And I would agree with that. The path lighting, unless if you walk on a path at dark, that's lit versus one that isn't, I mean, you don't even want to go near the one that isn't. And that elevates that park, I think, significantly by putting path lighting around it, just in the center. I think it would be very worthwhile to put it in there.
I agree, although I think on the west side, you've got house lighting that's going to bleed over into that. I don't think it'll be necessary on the west side. You're going to have so much light from the houses. Where light drive, along the circular drive, that end of the park perhaps could benefit from some lighting.
Anybody that wants to run around there is going to
But
want to light
I
to go
agree.
around
I think
it, yeah.
I think that's
Walk
one
their
of
dog.
those. I think that's one of those things that probably makes sense to at least put the conduit in,
Right.
and probably the bollard lightings as well. So, okay, I think we're getting close here. Does someone want?
I would like to make a motion.
Okay, someone.
Is that okay?
Trustee Gruis, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Town of Superior Resolution Number R-8, Series 2016. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Superior approving a construction contract between the town and ECI Site Construction Management, Inc. for the construction of improvements to the El Dorado K -8 park.
As is.
Yes, as is, I mean, including the basketball, yes, yes.
Second.
Motion by trustee Guerrero, second by trustee Pennington. Roll call vote.
Gregores?
Yes.
Folsom?
Yes.
Dozell?
Yes.
Henson?
Yes?
Pennington?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Wow.
Finally,
We
I
have-
can't believe it.
We have
Yes.
approved the park.
Yes.
Thank you for everyone's participation
It's been a long
in this
time coming.
process.
This is a big
Feels
step.
great to have this underway. So we look forward to seeing it, and thank you for being here. And yes. Okay, anything further for our meeting tonight?
The change order.
And
What's that process look like? And how quickly can we do that?
Well, they said by March, so I think.
Yeah, that's a timeline Patrick has. Depends on the cost and the amenities and,
So can we officially ask ProStack to put it on their next agenda and begin working on it?
they'll have to, yeah.
Okay?
Make it simple, nothing overly designy.
Right. Well, it has to work with the approved plan. Okay?
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Okay. Meeting's adjourned.